Chapter 592. The Yin-Yang demonic diagram was a heaven-grade spirit artifact. It was the greatest treasure Qian Yuan had obtained from the Yin-Yang demon sovereign's cave. It had always been his trump card, but now Chu Fengmian had torn it to shreds. This person is already an undefeatable existence. Qian Yuan's eyes flickered as this thought emerged in his mind. Run! Qian Yuan's figure moved. He waved his hand, and a surge of spiritual energy shot out. Yin and Yang energy condensed, forming a Yin-Yang Dharma idol. Qian Yuan suddenly spat out a drop of demonic blood. This drop of demonic blood fused with the Yin-Yang Dharma idol, causing it to instantly swell. Yin-Yang demon sovereign's essence blood? The moment he saw this drop of demonic blood, Chu Fengmian recognized it. This drop of demonic blood was the Yin-Yang demon sovereign's essence blood. Qian Yuan's figure immediately fused with the Yin-Yang Dharma idol, turning into a streak of light. He was actually planning to escape. Want to escape? No one can escape from the people I want to kill. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted as he watched Qian Yuan escape. His hand clawed, breaking through the void and grabbing Qian Yuan's figure. What? My escape light can travel 1,000 miles in an instant. How could I be caught? Qian Yuan's face suddenly changed. He had even sacrificed the Yin-Yang demon sovereign's essence blood to obtain power. He wanted to turn into a streak of light and escape. However, he had never imagined that he would be caught by Chu Fengmian. With Qian Yuan's current strength, even a high-level life and death realm expert would be able to retreat and advance as he wished. But now, he was powerless in Chu Fengmian's hands. It was as if running away was meaningless. In front of Chu Fengmian, there was no way to escape. I'm a character of the 7 great sects, a true genius. How could I die today? Qian Yuan had never imagined that he would die in the hands of Chu Fengmian, a mere northern region native. You talk too much. Die for me. Chu Fengmian looked at Qian Yuan and roared. The spiritual energy in his hand suddenly swelled. Qian Yuan was squeezed in Chu Fengmian's hand, causing his face to turn red. Bang! In the next moment, Qian Yuan's body exploded and turned into a cloud of blood mist. His blood essence was devoured by Chu Fengmian and condensed into a blood essence. At the same time, an empty ring flew out from Qian Yuan's shattered body. Chu Fengmian took the empty ring and poured his spiritual power into it. Looking at the wealth inside, he couldn't help but feel happy. This Qian Yuan is really lucky. He actually obtained the Yin-Yang demon Venerable's cave. He didn't even have time to refine the treasures left behind by the Yin-Yang demon Venerable. All of them belong to me. Chu Fengmian was overjoyed when he saw the countless treasures left behind. Originally, Chu Fengmian didn't have enough mystical items on him for the sacred sacrifice, so he planned to buy some more. But now, after obtaining Qian Yuan's wealth, he had prepared all the wondrous items needed for Chu Feng's sacred sacrifice. This Qian Yuan has given a big gift. Chu Fengmian sneered in his heart. These desolate ancient sect and sage monarch sect disciples wanted to kill Chu Fengmian and seize his wealth. But now they were killed by Chu Fengmian. All of their wealth and opportunities now belonged to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian, you killed Qian Yuan and Gulin. I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with the aftermath. Bai Xian said worriedly from the side. The two of them had high positions in their respective sections. They weren't ants. It's fine. After killing them, the people of the 7 sects won't be able to deduce that it was me. Moreover, their positions in the 7 sects were just small characters. Chu Fengmian said casually. When we return to Beimang Academy, we'll be promoted to seed disciples. Once we become seed disciples, we can go to Beimang Sacred Region, the sacred land of Beimang Academy, to cultivate. At that time, as long as I enter the life and death realm, I'll be able to deal with anyone other than those old fogies of the 7 sections. It won't be easy for them to chase after me. Chu Fengmian said confidently. Everyone in the 7 sects was afraid, but Chu Fengmian wasn't the slightest bit afraid. He was the person who wanted to destroy the 7 sections. Now, he had only killed a few disciples. What was there to be afraid of? This is the south of Primal Chaos Continent, the most remote place. Now that those people have been dealt with, it's the best place to hold the sacred sacrifice. Chu Fengmian glanced at the surroundings. There was no one around. The sacred sacrifice couldn't be disturbed. Quiet place like this was the best choice. We'll hold the complete sacred sacrifice here. Bai Xian, you stay here. This sacred sacrifice will also bring you great benefit. Chu Fengmian glanced at Bai Xian and said, the sacred sacrifice was a method used by some tribes in the ancient era to offer sacrifices to the heavens. The benefits obtained from it were enough to bring great benefits to a tribe. If Chu Fengmian was alone, he wouldn't be able to take all the benefits of the sacred sacrifice. It just so happened that he could also help Bai Xian condense her strength. Chu Fengmian wanted to return to Beimang Academy. Yi Tianjun and the others had a huge force in the academy. Chu Fengmian also needed to establish his own force. This Bai Xian was the best person for him to rope in. All right. Bai Xian nodded. She didn't doubt Chu Fengmian's words. The more she knew about Chu Fengmian's hidden strength, the more Bai Xian understood that relying on Chu Fengmian was the best choice. If she followed Chu Fengmian all the way, she might really reach a level she couldn't imagine. Let's set up the sacred sacrifice first. Chu Fengmian didn't hesitate. He took out countless strange objects from his spatial ring and gave a portion of them to Bai Xian. He wanted her to help him set up the sacred sacrifice. 2 figures flashed in the south of Primal Chaos Continent. Strange objects were set up one after another. In the surroundings, there was an incomparably huge altar rising into the air. Around the altar, there were many mystical items from the heavens, all of which were being used as sacrificial offerings. The sacred sacrifice was a sacrifice to the will of the heavens. Strange objects were used to exchange for the Supreme Will's reward. It took a total of 3 days to set up the sacred sacrifice. This was with the cooperation of Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian. If Chu Fengmian was alone, he wouldn't be able to complete it in 5 days. All right, the setup of the sacred sacrifice has finally been completed. As long as it succeeds, my body will be refined to the pinnacle and I will even obtain unimaginable benefits. Chapter 593. In a desolate land in the southern part of Primal Chaos Continent, an incomparably huge altar was suddenly completed. All kinds of heavenly treasures were arranged around the altar. If many martial artists were to see them, they would go mad with jealousy and try to seize them. However, all of these heavenly treasures were arranged around the altar as offerings. 2 figures were standing before the altar. They were Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian. All living beings under the heavens, sacrifice to heaven's will. Chu Fengmian roared. All of a sudden, various changes took place on the altar. Countless strange runes suddenly appeared on the altar. These strange patterns were extremely ancient. Even the most knowledgeable person couldn't understand their meaning. This was because these were characters born from the primal chaos before the birth of mankind. Mysterious and obscure, each character contained the truth of heaven and earth. Rumble! An incomparably huge face seemed to appear in the sky above the altar. This face looked like a human's face, a beast's face, a demonic beast's face, a demon's face, a strange beast's face. It was as if the face of all living beings under the heavens could be found in this face. This face was the face of heaven's will. It was the face of the entire world. Sacrifice. Seeing the appearance of this face, Chu Fengmian waved his hand. The Nirvana Dragon Egg, Fortune Branch, and Dragon Monarch Claw all flew into the altar. When they reached the altar, they were immediately integrated with countless primal chaos characters. Then, these 3 treasures all flew into the sky and were directly swallowed by that strange face. Rumble! After a long time, countless spiritual energies suddenly poured down from the sky. This spiritual energy pouring down was even more terrifying than a tsunami. If it bombarded a martial artist's body, perhaps even a high-level life and death realm martial artist wouldn't have any chance of resisting. This is... Bai Xian's face revealed some nervousness. She circulated the spiritual energy in her body, as if she wanted to resist. Don't resist. This spiritual energy is heaven's will's reward. Chu Fengmian roared. Only then did Bai Xian disperse all the spiritual energy in her body. She was somewhat nervous and somewhat expectant as she watched the spiritual energy pouring down from the sky. Rumble! Waves of spiritual energy poured down and washed over Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian. My strength has actually increased again? How is that possible? The moment the spiritual energy entered Bai Xian's body, Bai Xian felt that her strength had increased by another step. The spiritual energy in Bai Xian's body had already reached the limit of the divine power realm. This also meant that no matter what extraordinary item she devoured, she would not be able to advance any further. Only if one chose to cross the life and death calamity and enter the life and death realm would it be possible. But now, under the feedback of the heaven's will, her strength began to rise again. Even Bai Xian herself couldn't believe it. Hearing Bai Xian's words, Chu Fengmian smiled inwardly. This limit of strength was nothing in the face of heaven's will. The power of heaven's will was enough to break through the limit. In ancient times, some experts would use the sacred sacrifice in order to reach the limit of their strength. They would use the power of heaven's will to break through their limits. However, this was an extremely extravagant act. One must know how much wealth Chu Fengmian had spent to hold this sacred sacrifice. He had only been able to hold this sacred sacrifice because he had obtained a large amount of treasures from Qian Yuan and the others' spatial rings. If he were to hold this sacred sacrifice again, Chu Fengmian might not be able to find everything even if he broke his head. It's my turn now. Behind Chu Fengmian, the ancient battle dragon's shadow condensed by the battle dragon art was clearly visible. It was surging with a strange light. Waves of spiritual energy also washed over Chu Fengmian's body and merged with it. However, no matter how much spiritual energy there was, it could not condense another drop of ancient battle dragon's blood essence. Now, the ancient battle dragon's blood essence in Chu Fengmian's body had reached its limit. This was an unchanging rule since ancient times. Even heaven's will could not change all of this. However, the waves of spiritual energy merged with Chu Fengmian's body and merged with every part of Chu Fengmian's flesh. It caused Chu Fengmian's flesh to recombine and condense countless times. Every time it was recombined and condensed, it made Chu Fengmian's body stronger. Finally, after another shattering, Chu Fengmian's flesh was no longer blood-red, but a golden color. Only the flesh and blood of the primordial battle dragon would have a golden color. Now, not only the blood in Chu Fengmian's body, but even his flesh began to transform into the ancient battle dragon's. It is said that when the ancient battle dragon reaches adulthood, it will condense a dragon body. The strength of the dragon body also determines the future strength of the ancient battle dragon. I wonder how strong the dragon body that I condense will be. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. At the same time, he crazily devoured countless spiritual energies and merged them into Chu Fengmian's body. Bam! 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 Chu Fengmian's flesh was torn apart and recombined step by step. In the blink of an eye, Chu Fengmian's flesh had turned golden and he had become a real battle dragon's body. Within the golden flesh and blood, one could clearly see some ancient patterns. These lines were the dragon language, one of the most ancient languages. Although it was not as ancient as the chaotic language, it contained the true essence of the dragon clan. These dragon language condensed in Chu Fengmian's flesh and turned into the eyes of a formation. It turned Chu Fengmian's body into a formation and continuously supported Chu Fengmian's power. Ancient Dragon King Body. With this formation, my body has reached the level of the ancient Dragon King Divine Body. Chu Fengmian could feel that his current power was countless times stronger than before. Although Chu Fengmian's realm and the ancient battle dragon's blood essence did not change, his body had reached the level of the ancient battle dragon's body. However, his body had also reached the level of a real ancient battle dragon. It was enough to exert the power of his blood to the extreme. There was no change in his power, but Chu Fengmian's current strength was countless times stronger than before. My strength has reached such a level. Bai Xian, who was standing beside Chu Fengmian, slowly opened her eyes. Sensing the power in her body, Bai Xian seemed to be in disbelief. Her current strength had vaguely surpassed the geniuses of the 7 major sects, such as Qian Yuan and Gu Lin. Chapter 594. Gu Lin and Qian Yuan were peerless geniuses that the 7 great sects had spent countless resources to nurture. Bai Xian's current strength had already surpassed theirs. All of this was due to the power of the sacred sacrifice. With my current strength, I'm afraid I can pass through a life and death calamity in an instant, Bai Xian said slowly. She could feel that with her current strength, she could pass through a life and death calamity with a wave of her hand. In fact, after passing through the life and death calamity, his strength would most likely reach the high level of life and death realm. He was only one step away from becoming a big shot. After surviving the life and death calamity, I should return to the Beimang Academy first. It's rumored that the Beimang sacred region of the Beimang Academy also has unique methods and secret techniques that can increase one's strength. It's not too late to return, Chu Fengmian said slowly. Chu Fengmian's body had reached the great success stage. Now, he could choose to transcend the great calamity of life and death at will. However, Chu Fengmian didn't dare to underestimate this life and death calamity. When he was breaking through to the divine power realm, he had already attracted the 10,000 Thunder Emperor's calamity. Now that he was facing a true life and death calamity, it would probably be even more terrifying than the 10,000 Thunder Emperor's calamity. Chu Fengmian didn't plan to cross the life and death tribulation before he was fully prepared. Moreover, with his strength, it was easy for him to draw out the life and death tribulation. Therefore, Chu Fengmian wasn't afraid of encountering danger. He could draw out a life and death calamity at any time to break through. That's right. If we return to the Northern Mang Academy now, we will definitely be promoted to seed disciples. It is said that the seed disciples of the Northern Mang Academy are the ones that are truly nurtured by the Northern Mang Academy. Bai Xian said. Most of the seed disciples of the Northern Mang Academy will head to the Northern Mang sacred region to cultivate. It is said that there are some secret techniques unique to the Northern Mang Academy, and they will be heavily nurtured by the Northern Mang Academy. Although Luo Zhanhan's strength is not bad, he has never had the opportunity to be promoted to a seed disciple. Qian Yuan and Gu Lin are only considered average among the seed disciples in Northern Mang Sanctuary. Oh? People like Qian Yuan and Gu Lin can only be considered as average among the seed disciples? Chu Fengmian was slightly surprised. The strength of these 2 people was already not bad. Although they were not at the level of the true geniuses of the 7 major sects, they were still stronger than most of the disciples. Originally, he thought that the Northern Mang Academy was just a newly risen sect. It didn't have much foundation and couldn't nurture extreme geniuses. However, from what Bai Xian had said, this Northern Mang Academy was much more mysterious than he had imagined. However, Chu Fengmian was not worried. With his current strength and aptitude, he had already surpassed the Divine Force realm. Even many life and death realm experts would not be a match for Chu Fengmian. Even if he was promoted to a seed disciple, Chu Fengmian was not worried. Chu Fengmian also wanted to know more about the unique secret techniques of Northern Mang Sanctuary. Even the top 10 inner disciples of the Northern Mang Academy would only be able to learn some incomplete and crude secret technique. The Northern Mang Academy's unique secret technique could only be learned by those above the seed disciple level. Such mysteriousness naturally piqued Chu Fengmian's interest. I have already gained a lot from this trip to the Void Sea. Now I can prepare to return to the North Sea Academy. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. This trip to the Void Sea had brought Chu Fengmian countless benefit. His strength had been raised to the peak, and he had also obtained the endless treasures of the Blood Sea. Of course, among all the treasures, the most beneficial one for Chu Fengmian was still the ancestral dragon's supreme sword. As a sword cultivator, Chu Fengmian needed a suitable spiritual sword. Moreover, he cultivated the battle dragon art and possessed the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon. The ancestral dragon's supreme sword was definitely the most suitable spiritual sword for Chu Fengmian. Unless Chu Fengmian obtained another spiritual sword that had reached the level of an extreme-grade immortal weapon, the ancestral dragon's supreme sword was enough to accompany Chu Fengmian for a lifetime. "Alright, let's go." Bai Xian nodded her head in satisfaction and left with Chu Fengmian. She had already gained a lot from this trip to the Void Sea. When she had just arrived in the Void Sea, her strength was only considered average among the martial artists in the Void Sea. If Bai Xian were to display her full strength now, she would definitely be an overlord that no one would dare to provoke. Most of the benefits she gained were from Chu Fengmian. 2 streaks of escaping light flew away from the primal chaos continent and headed for the Void Ocean. They gradually came to the border of the Void Ocean and returned to the northern region in an instant. With Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian's strength, they broke through the space as soon as they left the Void Sea. The streaks of light were extremely fast, and they returned to the Northern Mang Academy in an instant. The Northern Mang Academy was still as lively as before. However, compared to before Chu Fengmian left, many of the newcomers in the same batch as Chu Fengmian had risen. For example, Yan Gu and Mu Yezhan had also begun to rise. Their strength had already reached the top 10 of the Inner Sect Earth ranking. Their strength had already reached the peak of the Divine Power realm. They only needed to accumulate a little more, and they would be able to pass the Life and Death realm martial artists. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian returned to the Northern Mang Academy and swaggered without concealing themselves. With their strength, it was hard to find an opponent in the Northern Mang Academy. The Seed Disciples and Core Disciples were all in the Northern Mang sacred region. Naturally, the two of them did not need to conceal themselves. They were incomparably arrogant as they directly entered Bai Xian's cave. This streak of light is so arrogant. It's simply provoking everyone. Who is it? Could it be Luo Changhen? Only Luo Changhen has the qualifications to be so arrogant. It's not Luo Changhen, it's Bai Xian and Chu Fengmian from the outer sect. These two have disappeared for a while. Could it be that they had a fortuitous encounter? However, they want to be arrogant just because they had a fortuitous encounter. Aren't they too arrogant? Let's wait and see. Currently, many of our Northern Mang Academy's inner sect disciples have also obtained fortuitous encounters in the Void Sea. That Yan Gu and Mu Yezhan even want to pursue that Han Yueli. They see Chu Fengmian as a thorn in their side. They will definitely make a move. Voices of discussion rang out. Chu Fengmian's expression was extremely calm. There was even deep disdain in his eyes. Right now, Yan Gu and Mu Yezhan were no different from ants in Chu Fengmian's eyes. There was no one in the inner sect who could enter Chu Fengmian's eyes. Looking at Chu Fengmian's current opponents, they were at least the Seed Disciples or Core Disciples of the Northern Mang Academy. Chu Fengmian even wanted to fight with the number 1 disciple of the Northern Mang Academy, Yi Tianjun. Chapter 595. Chu Fengmian looked at Bai Xian and smiled. Our return this time has caused quite a stir. The two of them did not hide their return. Of course, it was not to be arrogant, but to show off their strength. The Seed Disciples of the Northern Mang Academy did not need to be tested, but were personally selected by the elders of the Academy. Only those who performed well in the inner sect would be invited to become a Seed Disciple. Therefore, if they wanted to become a Seed Disciple, they had to display their strength. Bai Xian glanced at Chu Fengmian and said, "With your status, there will definitely be a lot of blind people coming. You better not go overboard." After all, this is the Northern Mang Academy. It will be hard to explain if someone dies. Of course. Chu Fengmian nodded. Those ants, I will only teach them a lesson. I will not kill them directly. Chu Fengmian did not intend to fall out with the Northern Mang Academy. Now that someone died, no one could step forward. However, if someone dared to provoke Chu Fengmian, he would naturally punish them. While the two of them were talking, 2 streaks of light suddenly flew to the surroundings of Bai Xian's cave. It was simply a provocation for this streak of light to barge into the vicinity of the cave abode. Look, it's senior brother Yan Gu and senior brother Mai Zhan. The two of them were accepted as disciples by the elders. They just recently returned to the Northern Mang Academy, and now they are here. The two of them are now comparable to the top 10 of the Earth ranking, and they are still hiding their strength. If they really go all out, I'm afraid that they can compete for the top 3 of the Earth ranking. Look, the two of them are really attacking. The disciples of the Northern Mang Academy spoke, one after another. They naturally knew about the relationship between Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli. At the same time, they also knew that Yan Gu was pursuing Han Yueli. Now that Han Yueli could not be dealt with, they naturally had to attack Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian, get out here! An angry roar suddenly rang out. Yan Gu was standing in the air. Around him, the surrounding space condensed into a crystal barrier. This crystal barrier seemed to be formed by the surrounding space, and it constantly protected Yan Gu's body. This is the Jade Mirror Divine Protection Art. It's an extremely mysterious defensive secret technique, unique to the Northern Mang Academy. Generally, only seed disciples can come into contact with it, but Yan Gu has actually mastered it. A North Sea Academy disciple looked at the crystal barrier beside Yan Gu and muttered. The jade mirror barrier that was formed around Yan Gu was able to protect his body at all times. It was an absolutely powerful defensive secret technique. Unless one could break the jade mirror, Yan Gu would be invincible. Evidently, after Yan Gu was accepted as an elder's disciple, he had received tremendous benefits and his strength had improved. Jade Mirror Divine Protection? Given his status, it should be impossible for him to be qualified to come into contact with it. It would appear that it was bestowed to him by his master, Elder Yu Gui. Bai Xian slowly said. Looks like Elder Yu Gui really thinks highly of him. He actually didn't hesitate to violate the sect's rules to bestow such a technique upon him. To be able to grow to such a level in such a short period of time, the nurturing behind the scenes is absolutely indispensable, Chu Fengmian said casually, not taking Yan Gu seriously at all. When Chu Fengmian had just entered the Northern Mang Academy, he was still somewhat fearful of Yan Gu during the assessment. However, now that Chu Fengmian had obtained the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword and obtained countless opportunities in the Void Ocean, Yan Gu was like an ant in Chu Fengmian's eyes. He wasn't even qualified for Chu Fengmian to take him seriously. What? Chu Fengmian, are you going to be a coward? Hiding in a woman's cave dwelling is ridiculous. How can a person like you be worthy of Han Yueli? Seeing that Chu Fengmian did not reply, Yan Gu became even more arrogant. If you don't come out, I'll wait for you here and see when you'll come out. Oh? If I'm not worthy, do you think you're worthy? Chu Fengmian sneered. When he heard Yan Gu's words, a mocking smile appeared on his face. Not to mention whether Chu Fengmian was worthy of Han Yueli, Yan Gu and Han Yueli were worlds apart. Han Yueli was a seed disciple, a person that the Northern Mang Academy had focused on nurturing. Although Yan Gu was an elder's disciple, he was not even a seed disciple. Damn it! When Yan Gu heard Chu Fengmian's words, anger appeared on his face. What Chu Fengmian had mentioned was simply something that made him furious. When Yan Gu saw Han Yueli in the assessment, he had the thought of subduing Han Yueli. However, the difference in status between him and Han Yueli was like heaven and earth. Chu Fengmian's words had poked his sore spot. Yan Gu roared furiously. Chu Fengmian, even if I, Yen Gu, am not worthy, you, Chu Fengmian, are also not worthy. If you don't come out, I'll smash this cave dwelling. As Yen Gu spoke, his spiritual energy suddenly erupted. Layers of jade mirrors intertwined with each other, and the light that was contained within them was extremely terrifying. You want me to come out? I just want to play with you for a while longer. Since you want to teach me a lesson, I'll teach you a lesson. Chu Fengmian looked at Yen Gu and sneered. He moved his body and left the cave dwelling, standing in the air. Chu Fengmian, you've finally come out. You're not a coward anymore? Seeing Chu Fengmian come out, Yen Gu's face became even more arrogant. What? You want to teach me a lesson? Ridiculous. You? You're just an insignificant outer disciple. You're not even selected by the elder. How dare you say that you want to teach me a lesson? Ridiculous. Brother Yen, please be gentle. This is the Northern Mang Academy after all. It's not good to kill him. Just destroy his cultivation and kick him out of the Northern Mang Academy. Mu Yezhan, who was beside Yen Gu, also spoke. Chu Fengmian, I don't have any enmity with you. However, I heard that you've been extremely arrogant since you arrived at the Northern Mang Academy. You've destroyed many disciples' cultivation. Today, we'll destroy you and get rid of a threat for the Northern Mang Academy. Cripple his cultivation? It's too easy for him to get rid of him. Yen Gu licked his lips and said with a ferocious expression. I'll plant a seal in his body and turn him into my dog. I'll bring him to Hanyueli and see if Hanyueli will still like this trash. What Northern Mang Academy's rules? I've only destroyed an outer disciple. How dare the Northern Mang Academy punish me? Mu Yezhan spoke as if Yen Gu was already a dead man, that he could do whatever he wanted with Chu Fengmian. Are you done? Finally, Chu Fengmian's face showed some impatience. If you're done, kneel down. Kneel down now. This is your only chance. Chapter 596. What? You want us to kneel down? Chu Fengmian, have you lost your mind? Yen Gu sneered. Don't think that you can be arrogant just because you've had some fortuitous encounters. You're not even fit to carry my shoes. You talk too much. Chu Fengmian glanced at Yen Gu, then glanced at Mu Yezhan and sneered. Both of you can come at me together. It's troublesome to deal with each of you one by one. Since you're here to die, why don't you be more straightforward? Chu Fengmian stood in the air with his hands behind his back and said coldly. His tone was filled with confidence. His eyes were extremely relaxed, as though he wasn't under any pressure at all. What? Chu Fengmian's words stunned all the Northern Mang Academy's disciples who were present. 1 against 2? He asked Mu Yezhan to come at him together when he's facing Yen Gu? Although Chu Fengmian is this year's newcomer king, everyone knows that the newcomer king is just a genius. The truly talented disciples, like Yen Gu and Mu Yezhan, were all selected by the elders to become inner disciples. That's why Chu Fengmian is the newcomer king. Chu Fengmian is too arrogant. He's so arrogant just because he's had some fortuitous encounters. Chu Fengmian is at the limit of the divine power realm. Yen Gu and Mu Yezhan are also at the limit of the divine power realm. Moreover, the two of them have learned the secret techniques of the elders. It's impossible for this kid to fight 1 against 1, let alone the two of them. Forget it. This guy is too arrogant. He should be taught a lesson. It's fine if he's arrogant in the outer sect, but he's asking for trouble when he's facing 2 of the top 10 disciples of the inner sect Earth ranking. Many discussions could be heard. There were countless disciples of the Northern Mang Academy standing near the mountain range to watch the battle. Yen Gu and Mu Yezhan were the disciples of the elders. Now that they've cultivated, they've attracted the attention of countless people. As for Chu Fengmian, he's just a person who's looking for death. It's only a matter of time before the disciples of the elders become seed disciples. Their aptitudes weren't bad, and they've reached the limit of the divine power realm. At the same level, it was impossible for them to lose to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian, show mercy. Just teach him a lesson. Bai Xian frowned and reminded him. She was also clear that these two were the ones who truly didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Now that there was no way for them to die peacefully, she could only ask Chu Fengmian to show them mercy. It doesn't matter. I'll just teach them a lesson. I won't really hurt them, Chu Fengmian said calmly. His tone was as if he did not place Yen Gu and Mai Zhan in his eyes at all. It was as if he could do whatever he wanted with them. Shameless boasting. Bai Xian, do you really think the two of us are afraid of you? It's just that I don't want to be calculative with you because you're a woman. Yen Gu looked at Bai Xian and said with a hint of lust in his eyes. I'll take care of this brat first, then I'll enjoy you. A woman like you should become this young master's woman. Really? Bai Xian looked at Yen Gu. Her eyes were extremely cold, but she did not attack. She knew that there was no need for her to do anything. Now that Yen Gu came to provoke Chu Fengmian, he was already a dead man. Even if he did not die, Chu Fengmian would teach him a lesson sooner or later. You're just an ant. You want to be a king? Chu Fengmian looked at Yen Gu and sneered. His body suddenly moved. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Yen Gu. Suddenly, he gathered spiritual energy and integrated it into his palm wind. Suddenly, he threw out a palm strike towards Yen Gu. Humph, you dare to be so arrogant with such a small trick? When Yen Gu saw Chu Fengmian's attack, his eyes were filled with disdain. In his eyes, this palm strike was extremely crude. It was just a strike of pure strength. Chu Fengmian, today, this young master will show you what true martial arts are. Mysterious. Yen Gu let out a long roar. Countless spiritual energy gathered around him. The spiritual energy turned into layers of jade mirrors and integrated into his fist wind. Jade Mirror King Fist. Suddenly, Yen Gu threw out a punch. It was as if it was going to sweep across the heavens and earth. Layers of space started to collapse and the area around Chu Fengmian was about to be shattered. That punch was planning to shatter the space around Chu Fengmian and himself. It was going to crush Chu Fengmian and suppress him. Chu Fengmian could feel that the space around him was being condensed by a force. It was as if it was going to be completely sealed. Chu Fengmian had no way to escape and could only be suppressed. Ridiculous. Chu Fengmian sneered. His punch was thrown out and it clashed with Yen Gu in the air. Rumble. Rumble. Continuous explosions rang out. Surging spiritual energy clashed with each other. In the next moment, the seal of the surrounding space was broken. All the spiritual energy in Yen Gu's punch had been destroyed by Chu Fengmian's punch. When the two fists clashed, Yen Gu's strength was actually being pushed back. He could not even hold on for a moment. How is this possible? Yen Gu was actually defeated? In a clash of strength, Yen Gu was actually defeated? A trace of surprise flashed through the eyes of some of the North Sea Academy's experts present. Chu Fengmian and Yen Gu were in the same realm. They were both at the limit of the divine power realm. As for Yen Gu, he was the disciple of an elder. He had even learned the profound cultivation techniques of Beimang Academy. His strength should be above Chu Fengmian's. However, in a clash of strength, Yen Gu was actually defeated so miserably. This was an outcome that no one had expected. Damn it. How can this person be so powerful? Yen Gu kept retreating as he tried to dissolve the power of Chu Fengmian's punch. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Looks like I have underestimated this kid. However, Chu Fengmian, so what if you are powerful? In front of my Jade Emperor mirror, all of your strength is meaningless. Yen Gu let out a long howl. A mirror suddenly appeared behind him. This mirror was a simple bronze mirror. It was extremely ancient and it contained a mysterious power. The power of the Jade Emperor mirror was actually very similar to Yen Gu's spiritual energy. It was obviously a spiritual weapon that was most compatible with him. Jade Emperor mirror. This spiritual weapon is actually in Yen Gu's hands? Bai Xian exclaimed in surprise. Jade Emperor Mirror is Elder Yu Gui's prized spiritual weapon. Although it is only a top Earth-grade spiritual weapon, its power is not inferior to a true Heaven-grade spiritual weapon. This is Elder Yu Gui's life-saving weapon. I can't believe he gave it to Yen Gu. Chapter 597. As soon as the Jade Emperor Mirror appeared, rays of rainbow-colored light shot out from the mirror and shrouded Yen Gu's body. Although these rays of rainbow-colored light looked weak, the power contained within them was incomparably mysterious. Even ordinary life and death realm martial artists would find it hard to break it. Chu Fengmian, this young master didn't expect your strength to reach this level. However, no matter how strong you are, it's meaningless today. Yen Gu looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed. Unless it's a high-level life and death realm martial artist, it's impossible to break the Jade Emperor Mirror's rays. No matter how strong you are, it's meaningless today. With the Jade Emperor Mirror as his trump card, Yen Gu was full of confidence and arrogance. He looked down at Chu Fengmian and said coldly, "Kneel down now and open your mind to me. I'll plant a seal on you and make you my slave forever. Then, this young master can let you live. Otherwise, you'll only end up dead today. Someone who can't even take a punch with 10% of my strength? You dare to talk nonsense?" Hearing Yen Gu's words, Chu Fengmian's face suddenly revealed a smile. "You dare to be arrogant with a puny spiritual tool? Even if you have the support of this spiritual tool, you're just an ant in front of me. Damn it, Chu Fengmian, it seems like you don't want to live anymore. Since you don't want to live anymore, I'll fulfill your wish." Anger appeared on Yen Gu's face. Just now, he had lost to Chu Fengmian in a clash of strength. This was an endless humiliation for him. He was an elder's disciple. He was a superior figure even to inner disciples, not to mention Chu Fengmian, who was just a newcomer king of outer disciples. In Yen Gu's heart, this was a great humiliation. If he didn't ruthlessly defeat Chu Fengmian today, he would no longer have a foothold in the North Sea Academy. An elder's disciple being defeated by a newcomer outer disciple was simply a joke. Chu Fengmian, you've already lost your last chance to live. Now, all you can wait for is death. Yen Gu's eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. The Jade Emperor Mirror was immediately activated and turned into a ray of light. Under this light, it was as though any existence would be destroyed instantly. This was a true beam of destruction. As he roared crazily, he charged toward Chu Fengmian and bombarded him with attack. Chu Fengmian's face was extremely calm in the face of the beam bombardment from the Jade Emperor Mirror. It seemed that there was no change in his expression. However, as Chu Fengmian's body moved, many dragon scales condensed on his skin. Ancient characters were engraved on each of the dragon scales. The countless characters connected together and formed a huge array inside Chu Fengmian's body. Above the array formation, a steady stream of power was added to Chu Fengmian's body. Ancient War Dragon Body. Now that Chu Fengmian had condensed the Ancient War Dragon Body, it meant that the Ancient War Dragon's blood essence in his body was turning into formation cores at all times, forming formation cores to increase Chu Fengmian's power. Chu Fengmian's skin had turned into a bronze color, and the aura on his body suddenly burst out. Facing the light beam of destruction, he did not dodge. Instead, he moved his feet and charged forward. What? Is Chu Fengmian planning to resist the attack of the Jade Emperor Mirror with his body? Although the Jade Emperor Mirror is a defensive spiritual tool, its offensive power is enough to surpass many Earth-grade spiritual tools. This kid is courting death by trying to resist it with his body. In everyone's opinion, Chu Fengmian must dodge the light beam from the Jade Emperor Mirror. The power of the light beam from the Jade Emperor Mirror was not inferior to many Earth-grade martial skills. No matter how strong a warrior was, it was not easy to resist it. If a life and death realm warrior were to come, he would choose to dodge and not resist it. But now, Chu Fengmian did not dodge. Instead, he faced it head-on. It seemed that he was going to resist the light beam from the Jade Emperor mirror with his body. This kind of action was crazy to the extreme. It was not crazy, but simply courting death. Everyone looked at Chu Fengmian. They felt that in the next moment, Chu Fengmian would be destroyed under the light beam. Even Yan Gu's eyes flickered, revealing a hint of ridicule. It was as if he was laughing at Chu Fengmian's recklessness. Clang! But in the next moment, the scene that appeared was completely beyond everyone's imagination. The light beam from the Jade Emperor mirror bombarded Chu Fengmian's body. Unexpectedly, the sound of a weapon expanding could be heard. The light beam from the Jade Emperor mirror poured down on Chu Fengmian's body. Unexpectedly, Chu Fengmian's body was unharmed. Even the fragments that condensed on Chu Fengmian's body were not broken. There was even a slight change. It was as if the light beam did not have any effect on Chu Fengmian's body. Using his body to resist the light beam from the Jade Emperor mirror, he was still unharmed. Is this still a human's body? Demonic beast. Even a demonic beast with a strong body would not dare to make such a crazy move. The crowd's eyeballs were about to fall out. No matter what, they did not dare to believe what was happening in front of them. Impossible! This is impossible! Yan Gu stood in the same place in a daze. His face was also extremely shocked. The light beam from the Jade Emperor mirror was actually resisted by Chu Fengmian's body. He did not rely on any means. Just using his body to resist, he was unharmed. This kind of body was simply inhuman. You dare to be impudent in front of me with such a small trick? Chu Fengmian looked at Yan Gu with a trace of contempt on his face. His current body had reached the pinnacle. Just the strength of his body alone was close to the high level of life and death realm. To deal with Yan Gu, he did not need to use spiritual power. Just his body alone was enough to kill him. Kneel down. Chu Fengmian looked at Yan Gu and suddenly waved his hand. It directly turned into an incomparably huge claw of a war dragon. It fell from the sky and directly landed on Yan Gu's head. An incomparably huge pressure pressed down on Yan Gu's body. Yan Gu suddenly activated the power of the Jade Emperor mirror, condensing more seven-colored light beams in front of him. Only then did he recover. Chu Fengmian, so what if your body is strong? Even if I can't defeat you, I will not lose. I want to see how you are going to break this Jade Emperor mirror. Yan Gu stood in the seven-colored light beams, looking at Chu Fengmian and sneered. You want me to kneel down? Even if I give you another 10,000 years, you won't have the ability to do so. Chapter 598. Yan Gu stood within the rainbow-colored light without the slightest bit of worry. The rainbow-colored light condensed by the Jade Emperor mirror could not be broken by anyone below the high level of life and death realm. Chu Fengmian, your strength is indeed not bad. However, this young master is about to become a seed disciple. Wait until I head to Northern Mang's sacred region and cultivate my Jade Mirror Divine Protection art to the extreme. Next time, you'll still die. Yan Gu laughed. This time I'll spare you. Next time I'll take your life. Let's go. Yan Gu planned to leave under the support of the rainbow-colored light. You want to leave? Chu Fengmian soared into the sky, condensing a surge of spiritual energy in his palm. With a shout, he abruptly infused it into the Battle Dragon Claw. Break! The power of the Battle Dragon Claw rose steadily. When it truly descended, it was just like the ancient era, when the ancient battle dragon reigned supreme. The incomparably huge dragon claw slammed down from the sky. The power contained within the battle dragon claw was like a clap of thunder, resounding in the sky. The enormous power contained within smashed onto the Jade Emperor mirror above Yan Gu's head. Countless rainbow-colored light condensed from the Jade Emperor mirror, contending against the power of the battle dragon claw. In the next moment, the rainbow-colored light that was condensed by the Jade Emperor mirror suddenly shattered. Even the Jade Emperor mirror had countless cracks on it. In the end, it was completely shattered by this power. Purring! The Jade Emperor mirror shattered into countless fragments, shattering into pieces in the sky. At the same time, Yengu's body was also suppressed by a surge of spiritual energy. Yengu fell from the sky, heavily kneeling on the ground. Under the suppression of spiritual energy, Yengu used all his means, but he could not resist it. He knelt on the ground, unable to struggle at all. How could this be? The Jade Emperor mirror shattered? How could it be shattered by someone? Yengu knelt on the ground, his face still filled with shock and disbelief. Not to mention shattering the Jade Emperor mirror, just breaking the rainbow-colored light on it would require the strength of a high-level life and death realm expert. Not to mention breaking the Jade Emperor mirror. Yengu's most powerful trump card was broken just like that. Kneel properly and consider this a lesson for you. How dare an ant like you try to fight against a true dragon? Chu Fengmian waved his hand and countless restrictions landed on Yengu's body. It caused Yengu's body to kneel on the ground. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break free. The Jade Emperor mirror was broken by Chu Fengmian. How is this possible? This is Elder Yu Gui's protective spirit tool. Even a high-level life and death realm expert can only break through the seven-colored light. Trying to break the Jade Emperor mirror is simply a fantasy. This person's strength is truly terrifying. This kind of strength is probably not inferior to those legendary seed disciples. To think that Yengu would end up kneeling on the ground. Yengu is kneeling on the ground. I'm afraid that his master, Elder Yu Gui, will not let this matter rest. This is a great humiliation. If Yengu is unable to get through this, I'm afraid that he will never be able to progress any further in the future. The Northern Mang Academy has always respected strength. If you dare to provoke others when you're not as strong as them, then you deserve to be suppressed. Countless Northern Mang Academy disciples were incomparably shocked. Yengu was not an ordinary Northern Mang Academy disciple. He was the disciple of an elder. Those who could be chosen by an elder and become an inner disciple were all geniuses among geniuses. Yengu was an insufferably arrogant character. His promotion to seed disciple was already set in stone. But now, he was defeated so thoroughly that he was kneeling on the ground. In Chu Fengmian's hands, there was no illusion at all. And Chu Fengmian wasn't being arrogant when he said that Yengu was an ant. Yengu couldn't even take a single move from Chu Fengmian. If he wasn't an ant in front of Chu Fengmian, then what was he? Mu Yezhan looked at Yengu. To think that Yengu would be defeated by Chu Fengmian like this, he was also incomparably shocked. He had never thought that Yengu would lose so miserably. Chu Fengmian didn't even use much strength to defeat Yengu. He even made Yengu kneel, leaving him with no chance to resist. This kind of strength had already far surpassed them. What? Mu Yezhan, don't tell me you want to teach me a lesson too? Kneel down as well. Chu Fengmian glanced at Mu Yezhan and sneered. His words were extremely casual, as if Mu Yezhan was an ant in front of Chu Fengmian. If it had been a moment ago, Chu Fengmian would have been ridiculed by others. But now, even Yengu had been defeated by Chu Fengmian. Mu Yezhan's strength was at most on par with Yengu's. Only death awaited him when he faced Chu Fengmian. Mu Yezhan's eyes revealed a trace of hesitation. If he were to run away now, he wouldn't be able to raise his head in Bei Ming Academy anymore. But if he were to stay now, he would be suppressed by Chu Fengmian and kneel on the ground like Yengu. This kind of humiliation was something that no one wanted to endure. Chu Fengmian, where it's possible to let people off, one should spare them. Don't go too far. Mu Yezhan looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly, I advise you to let Yengu go now to avoid more trouble. Yengu's master is Elder Yu Gui. If you don't let Yengu go today, you'll have to wait for Elder Yu Gui's revenge. Elder Yu Gui? He's just an old man. If he dares to provoke me, he'll have to kneel too. Chu Fengmian said disdainfully. As for you, you'll have to kneel too. This is your punishment. Cut the crap. Kneel. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly. His figure suddenly moved, and he rushed forward directly. He threw a palm strike at Mu Yezhan. As the palm pressed down, Mu Yezhan's body was completely suppressed. He couldn't hold on any longer and was about to kneel on the ground. Damn it! Kid, you've gone too far. Invert the heavens and earth. Mu Yezhan roared crazily. Waves of spiritual energy gathered around him, forming a yin-yang diagram. The diagram reversed, and the heavens and earth were about to be turned upside down. The twisting force within the diagram struck at Chu Fengmian, trying to tear him apart. But Chu Fengmian quietly pointed his finger. The twisting force that Mu Yezhan had gathered in his crazed state was broken. Just one finger was enough to break it. An ant trying to overturn the heavens? Kneel. Chu Fengmian casually threw a palm strike. Mu Yezhan was forced to his knees by the spiritual energy. He knelt on the ground beside Yen Gu. I wrote until 3 a.m. I can't write anymore. I'm not in a good state. I'll have to adjust myself first. Chapter 599. Yen Gu and Mu Yezhan. These two new geniuses were now kneeling on the ground in front of Chu Fengmian. As disciples of elders, the two of them dared to provoke Chu Fengmian and show off their strength. However, no one had expected that they would end up like this. They were all suppressed by Chu Fengmian. Under the gaze of the crowd, they knelt on the ground. Looking at the countless gazes of the surrounding North Mang Academy disciples, the shame in their hearts had reached the extreme. They wished they could commit suicide. For geniuses like them, their dignity was more important than their lives. However, under the suppression of Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy, the two of them did not even have the chance to commit suicide. All of you, kneel here and reflect on your actions. Chu Fengmian glanced at Yen Gu and Mu Yezhan and said coldly. He ignored the two of them and said to Bai Xian, who was beside him, "Let's go." The two figures left, leaving Yen Gu and Mu Yezhan kneeling on the ground, surrounded by countless North Mang Academy disciples. Chu Fengmian's strength is probably at the level of a seed disciple. It's possible. With his strength, it's possible for him to be promoted. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian must have encountered some kind of fortuitous encounter to be able to soar to the sky. An inner disciple was mad with jealousy. Originally, Bai Xian's strength was on par with his. As for Chu Fengmian, he had always looked down on a small figure. However, this small figure had far surpassed him. As for Bai Xian, although she did not take any action, he could feel that Bai Xian's strength was not on the same level as his. Don't bother about it. As long as the two of them become seed disciples, they will become great figures in our Beimang Academy. Their status will not be lower than the elders. We can only go and curry favor with them. The Reverend Realm Cultivators said. When Chu Fengmian fought against Yen Gu, everyone was on Yen Gu's side. However, after Chu Fengmian displayed his strength, they all stood on Chu Fengmian's side. After all, strength was everything. With strength, one would have status. No one dared to look down on Chu Fengmian, an outer disciple. Everyone respected him. It seems that in this Northern Mang Academy, I really can't endure. Chu Fengmian looked at the changes in the crowd and said with a smile, "The more you endure, the more you will be bullied. Only when you are strong enough and show your strength, will you have a real foothold in the North Sea Academy." The people from the Northern Mang Academy were all heaven's favored children. Unless one used strength to subdue them, there was no other possibility. Now that you've easily defeated Yen Gu and Mu Yezhan, you're in the limelight. This news will soon be noticed by the higher-ups of the North Mang Academy. Soon, an elder will come forward and invite you to be promoted to a seed disciple. Bai Xian suddenly changed the topic of conversation. However, you have shattered the Jade Emperor mirror and forced Yen Gu to kneel on the ground. The person behind him, his master, Elder Yu Gui, will likely not let this matter rest. Really? Elder Yu is at most a high-level life and death realm expert. If he dares to target me, he will also have to kneel down. Chu Fengmian said coldly. In the Northern Sea Academy, strength was respected. Those seed disciples and even core disciples would not pay any attention to the elders of the Northern Sea Academy. Yi Tianjun, for example, was someone that many elders would try to curry favor with. If he wanted to kill an elder, it would not take him much time and effort. Strength was the only rule in the North Sea Academy. That's right. As long as you have the strength, what are the elders? You can also kill them. If we become seed disciples, we will be on the same level as the elders. We won't have to be afraid of Elder Yu Gui's revenge. Bai Xian said. Suddenly, a jade talisman flashed in her palm. After opening the jade talisman and reading the message, Bai Xian said with a faint smile. Sure enough, the elders of the North Sea Academy want to meet us in the Achievement Palace. Now that Chu Fengmian had defeated Yan Gu and Mu Yizhan, the two of them had to kneel down and be suppressed. Such a big news, of course, quickly spread throughout the North Sea Academy. It was normal for the higher-ups to notice it. Let's go, Chu Fengmian said casually. He was showing off his strength this time because he wanted to become a seed disciple. Now that the opportunity had come, he naturally wouldn't miss it. Chu Fengmian also wanted to see the inheritance of the North Sea Academy. Two streaks of light shattered the void and arrived in front of an incomparably huge palace in a few breaths' time. This incomparably huge palace was the Achievement Palace, the place where the disciples of the North Sea Academy were promoted. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian stepped into the palace. Inside there were 3 elders. The aura of these 3 elders had broken through the threshold. They were extremely powerful and were all high-level life and death expert. In the North Sea Academy, the true elders were all high-level life and death experts. Those life and death experts were only outer elders, and there was still a gap between them and the true elders. Seeing Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian enter, the 3 elders walked out one after another. Elder Shui, Elder Mo, Elder Nangong. Bai Xian looked at the 3 elders and bowed respectfully. Bai Xian, there's no need to bow. You're about to become a seed disciple, and your status is on the same level as us. There's no need to be polite. One of the elders, Elder Shui, said with a smile. I didn't expect that the ones who will be promoted this time would be the 2 of you. The other elder, Elder Mo, also spoke. I originally thought that Luo Zhanhen would be the first to become a seed disciple. I didn't expect him to die in the void ocean. Elder Mo's words were somewhat regretful. Luo Zhanhen had always been the first on the Earth ranking, and becoming a seed disciple was almost a certainty. It was a great loss for such a genius to have fallen outside of the sect. One should know that there were less than 100 seed disciples and core disciples in the North Sea Academy, and this was the number that had been accumulated for countless years. It was rare for one seed disciple to be promoted every year. Now that Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian had both become seed disciples, it had never happened in several hundred years. Since that trash Luo Zhanhen died outside, then so be it. Our North Sea Academy doesn't need trash. The last elder, Elder Nangong, said coldly. His words were incomparably murderous. He sized up Bai Xian and Chu Fengmian with a smile on his face. The 2 of you are pretty good. Now that you've obtained a fortuitous encounter outside, you've already reached such strength. Among the seed disciples, this kind of strength isn't the worst. Very good. Our North Sea Academy has 2 more seed disciples. Our North Sea Academy has become even more powerful. Chapter 600. Elder Nangong's tone was one of winner takes all. If Luo Changhen died, he would be a trash. But now, Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian had obtained a fortuitous encounter and were promoted to seed disciples. This was a great contribution to the North Sea Academy. This kind of character was extremely simple, which gave Chu Fengmian a good impression. Let's talk about this later. Elder Shui hastily said. Supreme Elder has been waiting for a long time. Let's go in first. All right. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian nodded. Without saying anything else, Elder Shui led Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian into the depths of the Achievement Hall. Stepping into the depths of the Achievement Hall, the surrounding space became even more mysterious. It seemed as if they had arrived in a completely different space. In the Hall of Achievements, there was an incomparably huge throne. In front of the throne stood an old man. The old man's aura seemed extremely weak, as if he didn't even have the aura of an ordinary life and death expert. However, Chu Fengmian could clearly feel the old man's terrifying strength. The old man's strength had already reached the level of returning to one's origin. Like the spiritual venerable, this old man had reached the peak of life and death realm. This is the true big shot of the North Sea Academy. Chu Fengmian could clearly feel the old man's aura. It was even stronger than the spiritual venerable, peak of life and death realm. This kind of strength could be considered a big shot in the northern region. At the very least, Chu Fengmian couldn't contend against him with his current strength. However, Chu Fengmian wasn't worried. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to defeat the Supreme Elder in front of him. However, it wasn't difficult for Chu Fengmian to escape unscathed. Those who could truly kill Chu Fengmian were those who had surpassed the life and death realm and stepped onto the life and death stairs. The life and death stairs was the next realm after the life and death stairs. Although it was still within the life and death realm, it was still within the life and death realm. However, one's strength had to reach the peak of life and death realm before being able to cultivate the next step. These 9 stairs were the 9 layers of calamities. After completing the 9-layered tribulation, one would truly be able to transcend life and death. One would be in existence that was close to being immortal and indestructible, with an endless lifespan. Although life and death experts had a long lifespan, there would still be a day when they would fall. However, once they passed through the 9 layers of calamity, their lifespan would increase by 10-fold or even 100-fold, allowing them to live for hundreds of thousands of years. Chu Fengmian could sense that the Grand Elder in front of him hadn't even stepped onto the first step. If it was him who stepped onto the first step, even Chu Fengmian would have to be extremely careful because that kind of person was already in existence that could threaten his life. Although the Grand Elder before him was powerful, Chu Fengmian didn't care. The Grand Elder couldn't see through Chu Fengmian's various concealments, let alone pose any threat to Chu Fengmian. Grand Elder. When Elder Shui came in and saw the Supreme Elder, he bowed respectfully. You may leave. The Supreme Elder slowly opened his eyes and glanced at Elder Shui. With a wave of his hand, Elder Shui left. Chu Fengmian, Bai Xian, you two come over. Greetings, Supreme Elder. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian both opened their mouth. The Supreme Elder was in existence with an extremely high status in the North Sea Academy. For example, he was only a step away from stepping onto the life and death stairs. Once he stepped onto the life and death stairs, he would become a true ancient existence. He wouldn't care about worldly affairs and would focus on comprehending the life and death stairs. In the Northern Mang Academy, among the people on the surface, the Grand Elder was the person with the highest status. The Supreme Elder looked at Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian. Suddenly, his spiritual sense swept over them. This spiritual sense seemed to want to thoroughly investigate everything in Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian's bodies. Chu Fengmian had hidden all kinds of fortuitous encounters in his body, only revealing 1/10 of them, revealing a little bit of his dragon race bloodline. When Chu Fengmian fought in the North Sea Academy, he had always used his dragon race bloodline to create a feeling that he had encountered a dragon race fortuitous encounter. In 3 breaths' time, the Supreme Elder withdrew his spiritual sense. Bai Xian, who was standing beside Chu Fengmian, gasped for breath. This spiritual sense seemed to have brought her quite a bit of pressure. As for Chu Fengmian, although he wasn't affected, he also pretended to be embarrassed. Not bad. The fortuitous encounters that the two of you obtained are extremely pure ancient fortuitous encounters. It can't be faked. After sweeping his gaze, the Supreme Elder's eyes revealed some satisfaction as he spoke. Don't blame this old man. Disciples of the North Sea Academy who want to be promoted to Seed Disciple must be investigated. After all, we're going to the North Sea Sacred Region. We can't allow any outside traders to sneak in. The Earth Demon Sect and even the 7 great sects are eyeing our North Sea Academy covetously. Therefore, we can't allow any spies to enter the North Sea Sacred Region. Yes. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian both nodded. The North Sea Sacred Region was the true foundation of the North Sea Academy. It was heavily guarded. Every time a Seed Disciple was promoted, they had to investigate it thoroughly. Chu Fengmian, your bloodline should be an extremely high-grade dragon bloodline. The two of you should have entered the Void Ocean's ancient cave dwelling, right? The Supreme Elder glanced at Chu Fengmian and slowly spoke. Yes, the two of us entered Dragon Emperor Yan's ancient cave dwelling in the Void Ocean. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian looked at each other and spoke. There, we obtained some fortuitous encounters that gave us our current strength. Hearing Chu Fengmian's answer, the Supreme Elder nodded. Regarding Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian's fortuitous encounter, the North Sea Academy naturally could investigate it thoroughly. Now that they asked Chu Fengmian, it was actually a deliberate question to ask Chu Fengmian. Hearing Chu Fengmian's honest answer, the Supreme Elder was extremely satisfied. Don't worry. The fortuitous encounter that you obtained is also our North Sea Academy's blessing. Our North Sea Academy won't snatch the fortuitous encounter of our disciples. You can show it to your heart's content. The Supreme Elder laughed heartily. The more strength you display, the more the Academy will take notice of you and nurture you. In the North Sea Sacred Region, you have to fight for all the resources yourself. Yes. Chu Fengmian nodded, but in fact, he was sneering in his heart. Indeed, displaying one's strength and fortuitous encounters would allow one to obtain resources and be nurtured. However, this fortuitous encounter also depended on what kind of fortuitous encounter. Chapter 601. For example, the upper echelons of the Northern Mang Academy would not care about the small opportunities and would not fight for them. However, the opportunities on Chu Fengmian, the Emperor Jar, the Dragon Battling Art, and the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword. Even those old fogies of the Northern Mang Academy would not be able to resist the temptation. If Chu Fengmian really showed them, he would be courting death. Chu Fengmian did not believe that those old fogies could resist the temptation. In his previous life, the Sword Dao of the Master of Sword Dao was wanted by the 7 major sects at all costs. They even besieged and killed the Master of Sword Dao. If the 7 major sects were like that, the Northern Mang Academy was the same. If it was a great opportunity, like the Emperor Jar, those old fogies would fight for it crazily without caring about their reputation. At least, before Chu Fengmian passed the life and death tribulation, these secrets could not be exposed. Let's go. I'll bring you two to the Northern Mang Sacred Region. The Supreme Elder waved his hand and wrapped Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian's bodies. Chu Fengmian didn't resist. He allowed the Supreme Elder to grab him as he leaped into the space. The space around him was extremely distorted. This distortion was no longer something that could be seen innately. It was a distortion created by some almighty with supreme means. It made people unable to find the next path after stepping into it. The Supreme Elder led Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian through the distorted space. Finally, they arrived at a special space. The space around them was distorted. Ordinary people would not dare to touch them. However, the Supreme Elder took Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian and stepped into the distorted space. The space around them was turned upside down. The Supreme Elder took Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian to another ancient space. This space was extremely ancient, as if it was a remnant of the ancient era. Chu Fengmian could feel that the various laws in the Saint Realm were extremely different from those outside. They were completely different and countless times more mysterious. Cultivating in it for 1 day was much more efficient than cultivating in it for 10 days outside, especially since this place was a remnant of an ancient continent. The various ancient laws contained within were extremely beneficial to martial artists and were sufficient for them to comprehend. Outside, I can break the space at will. Even in the North Sea Academy, I can travel through space. But here, the surrounding space is like an iron wall. Chu Fengmian looked around and couldn't help but sigh. With his strength, he could even crush a high-level life and death expert to death. However, he couldn't break the space here. In the primordial era, all kinds of heavenly beasts, mutated beasts, and Xiantian realm experts fought in a frenzy. If the laws weren't sturdy enough, the ancient continent would have been smashed apart countless times. To be able to withstand such a legendary battle, the laws of the ancient continent were naturally extremely sturdy. The current 9 regions were just a part of the ancient continent that had evolved from it. The laws there were still very weak, and those at the divine force realm would be able to break through space. However, in this place, high-level life and death realm experts, and even peak life and death realm experts, were unable to break through space. This is the sacred area of our Northern Mang Academy, the Supreme Elder said. His tone was full of pride. This Northern Mang sacred area is a remnant of the ancient continent. You'll know all kinds of mysteries once you arrive. Now I'll take you to participate in the assessment. Although the 2 of you have caught the attention of the Academy and have the qualifications to be promoted, if you can't pass the assessment, you won't be able to become a seed disciple. The Supreme Elder said coldly. This assessment isn't easy. There's only a 50% chance of passing. The 2 of you will have to give it your all. Oh! Chu Fengmian didn't expect that the Northern Mang Academy would have to go through so much trouble to become a seed disciple. Just one of the qualifications was already hard to obtain. After obtaining the qualifications, one would have to undergo another assessment. Only after careful selection could one be promoted to a seed disciple. It was no wonder that the Northern Mang Academy didn't even have 100 seed disciples. With such a strict assessment, it would be hard to pass. However, Chu Fengmian was full of confidence. With his current strength, he could be said to be a seed disciple. Even if he was a core disciple, Yi Tianjun, Chu Fengmian had the confidence to fight him. Passing this assessment would be a piece of cake. The Supreme Elder brought Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian to a plaza. In the middle of the square, there was an extremely strict array with a door left behind. The test would be carried out in this array. This is the exam elder. Your assessment will be carried out by him. The Supreme Elder brought Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian over and stood to the side. You 2 are Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian? The people who came to participate in the assessment? The exam elder sat on a chair and glanced at Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian. He didn't even raise his head as he said, You 2 come here and enter. There's a 6th level life and death realm demon inside this array. You 2 will pass the assessment if you kill him. What? 6th level life and death realm? Bai Xian's expression changed when she heard the exam elder's words. Don't we only need to kill a 5th level life and death realm demon to pass the assessment? Bai Xian had heard a lot about this assessment. After all, with her aptitude, even if she didn't encounter any fortuitous encounters, she would still be able to become a seed disciple in the future. This assessment should only require one to kill a 5th level life and death realm demon to pass the assessment. However, the exam elder was talking about a 6th level life and death realm demon. Although there was only a difference of 1 level between 5th and 6th level life and death realm, 6th level life and death realm was already high level life and death realm. Although there was only a difference of 1 level, the difference in power was several times, or even 10 times. This assessment was simply purposely making things difficult. Defeating a high-level life and death realm demon with the strength of a peak divine power realm expert was simply impossible. The exam elder's eyes flickered as he sneered. That's under normal circumstances. Now that you two have advanced together, the difficulty will naturally increase. If you two join hands and kill this demon, you two will pass the assessment. What? Don't you think that's the right thing to do? Then, I would like to ask for the elder's permission. The two of us will take the assessment separately and kill a 5th-level life and death realm demon each. Bai Xian suppressed the anger in her heart and said calmly, "How about this?" Chapter 602. A 6th-level life and death realm demon was harder to deal with than 10 5th-level life and death realm demons. Even if they split up, it would be a lot easier. No. The exam elder glanced at Bai Xian and said coldly, "The content of the trial has been decided. As long as you are able to slay this demon, you will pass the trial. If you fail, you will fail the trial." Bai Xian's face flushed red. This exam elder was clearly making things difficult for them. Not to mention 2 people taking the test together, even 5 people taking the test together would have a hard time killing a 6th-level life and death realm demon. How could this be possible if it wasn't intentional? Also, if you're wasting time, I'll give you 2 hours. If you can't kill it within 2 hours, you'll fail. The exam elder snorted with disdain in his eyes. "Why aren't you going? You?" Bai Xian was furious. She wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Chu Fengmian. "All right, we'll take the test. Let's go." After saying that, Chu Fengmian brought Bai Xian into the array. At least they know their place. These 2 dared to offend Yi Tianjun, and now they want to become seed disciples? The exam elder sneered. "This time, I'll give them a big gift." The invigilating elder sneered. Although his voice was low, Chu Feng was able to hear it clearly. "Sure enough, it's Yi Tianjun's doing." Chu Fengmian sneered in his heart. This Yi Tianjun was someone who could cover the sky with one hand in the northern Meng sacred region. Even the exam elder had to listen to his orders to deal with Chu Fengmian. However, so what if he was making things difficult for Chu Fengmian? How could this test stop Chu Fengmian? Chu Fengmian, this exam elder must have been ordered by someone to make things difficult for us, Bai Xian said from the side. "I wonder if it's Yi Tianjun or the Lu family." Yi Tianjun's Saint Society is able to cover the sky with one hand in the North Meng Academy. Among the seed disciples, nearly 50% of them are from the Saint Society. And the king's faction, established by Lu Hua of the Lu clan, is also a colossus in the Northern Meng Academy. 30% of the Northern Meng sacred region's disciples have also defected to the king's faction. Right now, both of them are targeting you together. I'm afraid that there will be countless troubles. Now, Chu Feng Mian had provoked the 2 largest parties in the Baiming Academy. He was afraid that in the future, he would be targeted everywhere. That's right, Chu Fengmian's expression was incomparably relaxed. He was not afraid of anyone targeting him. Moreover, everyone in the Northern Meng sacred region were either friends or enemies. Since they were enemies, Chu Fengmian wouldn't be afraid no matter how many enemies there were. It doesn't matter. What saint party? What king party? I'll destroy them all in the future and make them submit. Chu Fengmian calmly said. Vaguely, he already had the aura of a sovereign. The stronger he became, the more unfathomable he became. Chu Fengmian's temperament also began to transform into a real big shot. As the 2 conversed, they directly walked into the array. This array was incomparably mysterious. In an instant, Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian seemed to have been transported to another space. This was an incomparably pitch-black region. The surrounding land was completely black. This wasn't a natural color, but a color that had been demonized by demonic intent. On one of the mountains, a demon that was 5 to 6 meters tall stood there. This demon had 2 sharp horns on its head, and it waved a bone sword in its hand. The demonic intent on its body was strong, and it contained a terrifying battle intent. Azura. This is the legendary Azura of the Heavenly Demon Clan. Bai Xian's expression greatly changed when she saw this demon, and she suddenly spoke. Azura is the royal clan of the heavenly demon clan. They are true warriors. Each Azura is a genius in battle. Their strength is incomparably powerful, and they can fight across realms. This Azura's realm has already reached the mid-6th level of life and death realm. However, his strength is probably at the peak of the 6th level of life and death realm. Damn it, they actually want us to kill him? Bai Xian cursed in her heart. Even a 7th level life and death expert might not be able to kill this Azura. This exam elder was definitely deliberately making things difficult for them. A high-level life and death demon was one thing, but it was actually the most powerful Azura. The North Sea Academy actually sent 2 little guys to their deaths? The moment Bai Xian noticed the Azura, the latter also looked at Bai Xian and Chu Fengmian. After sizing them up, he saw that Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian were only at the peak of divine power realm. His eyes were filled with disdain. North Sea Academy's trash, can't you find anyone? Sending you 2 little guys to your deaths? Good, I haven't eaten meat for a long time. Today I'll eat your flesh first. The Azura suddenly moved, and the bone sword in his hand was waved. Immediately, demonic intent overflowed and swept out. This Azura was a pure heavenly demon, and even a royal demon. His demonic intent was much more terrifying than the likes of Undying Demon Venerable. This was especially true for the bone sword in his hand. It was forged from the toughest rib bone in an Azura's body after reaching adulthood. It was much more powerful than ordinary Earth-grade spiritual tools. When the sword was waved, the power it contained shook the space. Just a little demon. Azura? Your body happens to be the best material to refine a spirit artifact. I'll use your body and the bone sword in your hand to refine a spirit artifact. Chu Fengmian glanced at the Azura and calmly said. Hearing that Chu Fengmian wanted to refine him into a spiritual tool, the Azura flew into a rage. A little brat like you wants to kill me? Ridiculous. Die for me. Surging demonic intent filled the sky, bombarding Chu Fengmian. This demonic intent turned into a hurricane, and the demonic intent contained within was enough to tear a person apart. Chu Fengmian stood in place, facing the incoming hurricane with an extremely calm expression. Roar! A dragon's roar suddenly resounded from his mouth. This dragon's roar contained the dragon's might of the war dragon, which completely dispersed the surrounding demonic intent. No matter how powerful the Azura was, he was no match for the war dragon. After Chu Fengmian's dragon's roar, his body transformed into the appearance of the ancient war dragon, and with a roar, he charged forward. Chu Fengmian's palm moved, and the war dragon's claw descended, suppressing the Azura's demonic intent completely. Chapter 603. Chu Fengmian condensed the power of the ancient battle dragon and slammed down with a claw. Before the battle dragon claw, the terrifying demonic intent of the Azura was crushed without any suspense. Although Chu Fengmian's current strength was at the peak of divine force realm, in terms of pure strength, Chu Fengmian's strength had even surpassed high-level life and death experts. Ordinary high-level life and death experts wouldn't even be Chu Fengmian's match. They would be instantly suppressed by the battle dragon claw. His strength was already close to the peak of life and death realm. As long as Chu Fengmian crossed the life and death calamity, he wouldn't be able to escape. Once he reached the peak of life and death realm, his strength might even surpass the peak of life and death realm and enter the legendary 9th step of life and death step. Suppress. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and another battle dragon claw pressed down. That claw had completely shattered the demonic will on the Azura's body. And the target of this claw was the Azura himself. Damn it! What kind of power is this? I can feel that this person hasn't even reached life and death realm. How is it possible for a divine force realm expert to have such strength? The Azura repeatedly retreated, his face filled with disbelief. His devil will had actually been completely shattered. Damn it! I'm an Azura, a royal of the heavenly demon clan. How could I be defeated by a divine force realm brat? Demonic intent possession. Ancient demonic body. The Azura malevolently roared. His body, the scales, and the horns on his head were all undergoing metamorphosis. This metamorphosis made the Azura's aura a lot stronger, and the demonic intent on his body became even more ancient. This Azura's bloodline was actually extremely pure. Now that he had condensed his demonic intent, he gradually transformed into the appearance of an ancient Azura. The current Azura clan was only the remnant of the ancient Azura's bloodline, and their strength was less than a tenth. In the ancient era, when the heavenly demons swept down, the Azura clan alone was enough to destroy a huge force. Brat, die for me! The Azura suddenly roared and waved the bone sword in his hand again. Countless demonic intents engulfed his bone sword and slashed out. This bone sword slashed out with an incomparably profound sword art. The Azura clan had always been a sword Dao expert. Their inheritance of sword Dao was even more powerful than the martial clans of the northern domain. Suddenly, the sword slashed out at Chu Fengmian. Thousands of sword shadows were unfathomable and impossible to block. The power contained in this sword was obviously a sure-kill sword. This sword was meant to completely kill Chu Fengmian. It was the Azura's swordsmanship that had been displayed to the fullest. Even a high-level life and death realm expert would be killed by this sword. Be careful, Bai Xian hastily warned. This sword principle was extremely mysterious, and it was even more profound than Bai Xian's sword principle. Sword Azura's Azura-S and Death's Azura's. Azura-S ancestor, a sword ancestor. Ancestor Azura's sword art. Is sword. S God S sword of the heavens of them, he S of this. Swordsmanship was not a privilege of the human race. For example, the Azura race were all experts in swordsmanship. In the Dragon clan, there was also a character like Dragon Emperor Yen. The Azura clan's sword art was a good reference for Chu Fengmian. A truly powerful sword art had to be based on the strengths of each clan. Break. Chu Fengmian indifferently spat out a single word, and the ancestral dragon's supreme sword suddenly appeared in his hand. The tip of the sword turned into a sword chi and slashed out. This sword chi contained Chu Fengmian's terrifying sword intent. Sweeping down, the Azura's sword chi was instantly annihilated. Azura, die. I'll fuse your body with the bone sword and forge a new spirit tool. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and a wave of spiritual energy grabbed the Azura and the bone sword at the same time. Pung! As Chu Fengmian clenched his hand, the Azura's body began to distort. No, don't even think about refining me. I'm a noble sky demon king. Azura! How can a puny human like you refine me? From the Azura's body, countless demonic intents burst out wantonly. All kinds of martial techniques were used one after another as the Azura struggled madly. It was delusional to think that it could escape from Chu Fengmian's hands. This was truly a desperate fight. The Azura was the perfect warrior of the Sky Demon clan. At this moment of desperation, the Azura's full strength was extremely terrifying. Countless attacks were launched. It was as if the Azura was trying to break free from Chu Fengmian's hands, trying to escape from Chu Fengmian's hands. It's useless. Let me refine you obediently. Chu Fengmian's cold voice sounded. No matter how the Azura struggled, it was impossible for him to escape from Chu Fengmian's hands. From Chu Fengmian's body, the power of the Battle Dragon bloodline was activated once again. In an instant, the Azura was refined and suppressed. Any resistance from the Azura was firmly suppressed. Boom! The Azura's body was crushed in front of this power. The demonic blood in the Azura's body immediately merged with the bone sword in his hand and began to burn madly. Chu Fengmian wanted to use the Azura's blood to refine the bone sword. The bone sword was originally refined by the Azura's own blood essence. Now, Chu Fengmian was burning all of the Azura's blood essence into the bone sword, refining it. In the end, the bone sword's appearance became even more ferocious. An extremely terrifying demonic intent was emitted from it, making one's hair stand on end. The bone sword was integrated with the Azura's lifelong martial technique and demonic intent. Chu Fengmian had integrated all of the Azura's demonic intent into it. It was simply a sword with a spirit. I'll give this bone sword to you. You still lack a suitable weapon. This bone sword also contains Azura's unique sword technique. You can carefully study it. Chu Fengmian looked at Bai Xian and waved his hand, throwing the bone sword to her. Bai Xian caught it, her face filled with joy. The bone sword of the Azura clan was originally an extremely powerful spiritual weapon. It was even more powerful than an Earth-grade spiritual weapon. Moreover, the Azura's flesh and blood had been refined and integrated into the bone sword. When facing an enemy, it could even use the demonic intent within to disturb the opponent. At present, the bone sword was probably unrivaled under the heaven-grade spiritual weapon. It was definitely a suitable weapon. Let's go. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian looked at each other, then the two walked out of the formation. Xiao Yu knew that she owed a lot of updates and was still busy. She estimated that she would finish them on the 19th. Starting from the 20th of this month, she would explosively update every day, at least 6 updates, until she finished all the updates she owed. She could only ask everyone to wait for a few more days. Xiao Yu also knew that the updates in the past few days were unstable. Sometimes, she would be so tired and sleepy that she couldn't write anymore. Chapter 604. Outside the array, the invigilating elder sat on a chair and looked at the array leisurely. These two brats, why haven't they come out yet? I thought they would obediently run out when they saw the Azura. Why haven't they come out yet? The invigilating elder couldn't help but mutter to himself. Han Yueli is now the favorite of those old fogies in the academy. If Chu Fengmian dies in the assessment, it will be difficult for Han Yueli to deal with him. But this is the mission given by the Holy Faction. It doesn't matter if these two die. It's not a big deal for 2 inner disciples to die in the assessment. The invigilating elder thought coldly. At this moment, a ray of light suddenly emitted from the array. In the cave, 2 figures, Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian, walked out from the array. You're out? It's okay if you didn't pass. You can still participate in the assessment next time. The invigilating elder said with a smile. Since you didn't pass the assessment this time, you can leave the Northern Mang sacred region. Without being promoted to seed disciple, you are not qualified to cultivate in the Northern Mang sacred region. The invigilating elder sneered in his heart. How could it be so easy to be promoted to seed disciple after offending the Holy Faction? Chu Fengmian said with a strange smile on his face. Who said we didn't pass the assessment? Isn't it just killing an Azura? I didn't expect the assessment to be so simple. What did you say? The invigilating elder was stunned when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. He couldn't help but ask. You've completed the mission and killed the Azura? The invigilating elder's voice was filled with shock. The invigilating elder knew the strength of the Azura. Even if he entered, he wouldn't be able to kill the Azura. Instead, he would be killed by the Azura. Chu Fengmian, you have to know that there's no point in lying now. We can find out the truth with a simple investigation, the invigilating elder said coldly. Since you failed the assessment, just leave obediently. Don't look for trouble. Chu Fengmian didn't speak. He glanced at Bai Xian who was beside him. Bai Xian moved her hand and threw a bone sword on the floor. The sturdiness of this bone sword caused a large crater to appear on the floor. This is? When the exam elder saw the bone sword, he was shocked, especially when he saw the terrifying demonic intent on it. Azura's bone sword? Not only did you kill the Azura, but you also refined him into this bone sword with such a dense devil will? When the exam elder spoke, his voice was trembling. This bone sword was the bone sword of an Asura. An Asura would never discard their weapon. This bone sword represented the life of an Asura. This was especially true for the demonic will on it. Clearly, it had been completely infused with the Asura's blood essence. Two cultivators at the pinnacle of the divine power realm had actually managed to kill a high-level life and death Asura. Asuras were originally one of the most difficult existences to deal with in the heavenly demon clan. Every one of them was comparable to a human genius, a terrifying existence that could fight above their level. But now, he had been killed directly. Even his blood essence had been integrated into the bone sword, sacrificing it to become a spiritual sword. When the exam elder saw this, his scalp went numb. Impossible! This can't be real. The exam elder said in disbelief. This must be a fortuitous encounter you had before. You must have prepared it long ago. Then, I'll ask the exam elder to examine it. Chu Fengmian didn't speak any nonsense and directly threw the bone sword to the exam elder. The exam elder received the bone sword with a doubtful expression. He still couldn't believe it. With a move of his palm, a water mirror appeared in front of the bone sword to calculate the Asura. The figure from the array gradually appeared. The Asura had been defeated by Chu Fengmian. He had been directly suppressed and killed. His blood essence had been infused into the bone sword, forging it. The invigilating elder took note of all of this, and each of his moves was flawless. After seeing all this, the exam elder looked at Chu Fengmian as if he was looking at a monster. This high-level life and death Asura had actually been suppressed and killed by Chu Fengmian without being able to retaliate. This kind of strength was simply too frightening. This was especially true for the battle dragon claw. The might contained within it had caused faint cracks to appear on his water mirror, and it had nearly shattered. I thought there was only one monster, Han Yueli. This person's strength is truly frightening. The exam elder looked at Chu Fengmian with flickering eyes. After a long while, he slowly opened his mouth. Yes, this Asura was killed by you. You've passed the exam. However, the invigilating elder's face suddenly turned cold as he changed the topic of discussion. Although you've passed this exam, you too still can't become seed disciples. You have to go through another exam. What? There's another exam? Bai Xian frowned after hearing the exam elder's words. Isn't there only one exam for seed disciples? Even Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed some hostility. He had heard of this kind of exam. This exam was difficult, but it was still within the rules. Chu Fengmian had the strength to break through it. However, he had never heard of a second exam. Are you the exam elder or me? What do all of you know? The test to become a seed disciple originally had 2 tests, but one of them was originally omitted. The invigilating elder said coldly. There are 2 conditions to become a seed disciple. Completing this exam is only one of them. There's another condition. You have to reach the limit of the divine power realm. Now, follow me to the exam hall. We want to see if you too have reached the limit of the divine power realm. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian's expression changed slightly after hearing the exam elder's words. This kind of seed disciple must be at the limit of the divine power realm. This was indeed one of the rules. However, those who were qualified to become seed disciples were all at the limit of the divine power realm. This rule had never been noticed by anyone. For example, Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian were both at the limit of the divine power realm. Anyone could tell that with a single glance. No one knew why the exam elder brought up this topic at this time. This exam elder is targeting us. He wants to check our cultivation realm. He might cheat us. What should we do? Bai Xian said worriedly. Chapter 605. For him to suddenly bring up this matter, he must be one of the elders who wanted to target Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian. Especially since Chu Fengmian had just entered the inner sect. He didn't have anyone to rely on and could only be targeted. Don't worry, this Chu wants to see what other tricks they have. Chu Fengmian said indifferently. This exam elder was like an ant in Chu Fengmian's eyes. If Chu Fengmian wanted to crush him, it would be simple. In the face of absolute power, all schemes and tricks were meaningless. Let's go, Chu Fengmian said to Bai Xian beside him. Two figures immediately followed the exam elder and arrived at a palace. This palace was located in an extremely remote corner of northern Mang sacred region. As they followed the exam elder, Bai Xian's face turned solemn. Go in. The exam elder looked at Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian and coldly snorted. The interior of the palace was pitch black, making it impossible for anyone to see what was inside. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian glanced at each other and walked in. Bai Xian was the first to speak. Test Elder, didn't you come here to check our cultivation levels? Why are you here? Check our cultivation? Seeing Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian enter the palace, the exam elder revealed a sinister smile. You think you can still be promoted to seed disciple after offending the Saint faction? Originally, I wanted you to back off and be good inner disciples, but I didn't expect you to be so tactless. Don't blame this old man. The exam elder let out a long roar. 3 elders, come out. You actually let these 2 pass the exam. You didn't even complete the task given by the Saint Lord, and even needed us to take action. Forget it, this kid is a thorn in the Saint Lord's side anyway. Now that he's dead, everything will be settled. Anyway, he's just an inner disciple. If he dies, then he dies. No one will stand up for him. 3 voices suddenly sounded from the palace. 3 elders slowly walked out from within. Every single one of them had the strength of a high-level life and death expert. Compared to the exam elder, they were not the slightest bit weaker. Exam elder, what's the meaning of this? Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered with killing intent. What we're doing now seems to be a little too much. Although the Saint Party is big, they're still unable to cover the sky with one hand in this northern Mang academy. He had originally thought that the elder was just trying to make things difficult for him. However, this was within the rules. But now, it seemed that the people of the Saint faction were truly lawless. They actually dared to do such a thing in the northern Mang sacred region. Humph, the northern Mang sacred region is under the control of our sacred faction. How dare a nobody like you go against our sacred faction? You're courting death. One of the elders burst out laughing while murderous intent surged in his heart. You've offended the Saint Lord, which means you've offended Heaven's will. If Heaven's will wants you to die, then you must die. There's nothing wrong with killing a few inner disciples. This caused one of the elders to laugh out loud. Moreover, no one will know even if we kill you today. As long as no one investigates, who dares to go against our sacred faction? Kid, your mistake is that you dared to snatch the Saint Lord's woman. Now I'll give you a chance. Kneel down and obediently submit to our sacred faction. As a slave, I can bring you to the Saint Lord to plead for your life. How about it? The exam elder said coldly. This exam elder was also a member of the sacred faction. The fake smile on his face had already been torn off, leaving behind a ferocious expression. Sacred faction Yi Tianjun? I haven't dealt with him yet, and he dares to deal with me. Chu Fengmian's gaze swept across as his face turned gloomy. But it's fine. You elders must have received a lot of benefits from him. Killing all of you will be enough to make Yi Tianjuan's heart ache for a while. Kill us? What a joke. With just you, a divine force realm brat? One of the elders sneered. Kid, do you think you can fight against us just because you've obtained some fortuitous encounters? Anyone who dares to go against our sacred faction will die. Another elder spoke up. You're quite stubborn. Today I'll tear your mouth apart. Let's see how stubborn your mouth is. As he spoke, the elder made his move. His body shook as a surge of spiritual energy burst out, turning into a starry river. Every starry sky in this galaxy was condensed from the purest spiritual energy, which was comparable to an ordinary Earth-grade spiritual artifact. Countless stars fell from the starry river, striking towards Chu Fengmian. Kid, I heard that you've obtained some fortuitous encounters? You know the Dragon Clan's martial technique? But so what? Long Wei Yang doesn't dare to go against our sacred faction. You, a kid who obtained some fortuitous encounters, want to go against us? Go to hell. The stars in the sky fell one after another. There were more than 100 of them falling at the same time. It was equivalent to hundreds of martial artists activating their spiritual energy at the same time. No matter where he fled to, he would be bombarded by these stars. This is one of the secret techniques of the Beimang Academy, the 9 Heavens Stars technique. It's a secret technique that's close to a heaven-grade martial technique. Bai Xian exclaimed from the side. The elders of Northern Mang's sacred region were far more powerful than the elders outside the academy. They had learned countless secret techniques left behind by Northern Mang's sacred region and had their own means. Compared to the elders outside, although they were also at high life and death realm, they were much more powerful. 9 Heavenly Stars Art? The incomplete universal star art of Dubhe Hall. You've just patched it up and you dare to be impudent in front of me. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with disdain. The battle dragon bloodline in his body was activated. His right hand suddenly turned into a battle dragon claw and struck out. Break. The moment the battle dragon claw was activated, the surrounding spiritual energy shook. Endless dragon aura spread out. Countless forbidding formations were set up in the palace. Any battle that took place inside the palace would not be noticed by the people outside. This was originally set up to deal with Chu Fengmian. But now, Chu Fengmian no longer needed to hide his strength. The 12,960 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence were all activated to the extreme. The countless scales on the battle dragon claw turned into a formation, increasing the power of the battle dragon claw by close to 10 times. Rumble! The battle dragon claw directly struck the sky and the endless starry river. The stars in the sky were instantly destroyed by the battle dragon claw. None of them were able to land on the ground. Chapter 606. Tear. Shattering all the stars in the sky wasn't the end of it. Chu Fengmian activated his battle dragon claw and clawed at the endless stars in the sky. He wanted to tear apart the entire Milky Way. What a powerful force! Let's attack together. The remaining 3 elders were startled when they saw Chu Fengmian attack. Without any hesitation, they attacked with all their strength. Fall Kill. Demon Shattering Blade Art. Diamond Martial Fist. The 3 elders condensed countless martial skills and crazily bombarded Chu Fengmian. These 3 elders were all high-level life and death experts. Their combined spiritual power was enough to shatter and kill any high-level life and death expert. However, Chu Fengmian stood in place with an extremely calm expression. There wasn't even the slightest bit of panic. With a wave of his hand, the battle dragon claw expanded countless times. Facing the bombardment of countless martial skills, it immediately went up to meet them. Even a grain of rice can release brilliance? Chu Fengmian sneered disdainfully and the battle dragon claw met them. Boom! Boom! Countless martial skills bombarded the battle dragon claw. The battle dragon claw shook, and the spiritual power within was directly shattered. There wasn't the slightest trace of injury on the battle dragon claw. What kind of technique is this? This Dragon Clan martial skill is even stronger than Long Weiyang's. The 4 elders' faces were filled with shock when they saw Chu Fengmian easily neutralize the countless martial skills that they had launched after joining hands with him. The 4 of them were all high-level life and death experts. Although they couldn't be called geniuses, who among them could become Northern Mang's sacred region's elders? How could they not be shocked when they saw Chu Fengmian dissolve their martial skills so easily? Everyone, release the power of the Saint Seed and kill him together, the exam elder furiously roared. The killing intent in his eyes was incomparably firm. Chu Fengmian's aptitude made him want to kill him. Today's grudge had already been formed. If he didn't kill Chu Fengmian today with his aptitude, he would become a truly terrifying figure when he matured. With Chu Fengmian's character, as long as they didn't kill him today, he would definitely kill them when he matured. Alright. The other three elders looked at each other and said in unison, "Refine the saint seed." All of a sudden, countless amounts of spiritual energy gushed out from the bodies of these four people, as if a source of power had been opened. Chu Fengmian had fought with people from the sacred faction countless times, so he naturally knew that these were the origin seeds hidden in their bodies. Now, they were all activated at once. Immediately, waves of chaotic spiritual energy surged out, causing the strength of the four elders to rise steadily. "Brat, you've had countless fortuitous encounters. Today we won't kill you. We'll capture you and hand you over to the Holy Lord. He'll definitely reward us," the exam elder said in a mocking tone. This was the power of the Holy Seed. Once it was activated, their strength would rise steadily, and they would also possess chaotic spiritual energy. Dealing with a mere Chu Fengmian was not an easy task. "Really?" Chu Fengmian said coldly. "I'll kill you all and deliver your heads to Yi Tianjun. You're just a seed that contains the power of chaos. How dare you be so arrogant?" Boom! The spiritual energy in Chu Fengmian's body rose rapidly. Chu Fengmian's body turned into a gigantic primordial battle dragon. The dragon's body moved, and it contained extreme power as it smashed down. Chaotic Divine Fist. Facing Chu Fengmian's power, the four elders attacked at the same time, activating the power of chaos to the extreme and forming the Chaotic Divine Fist. As soon as the Chaotic Divine Fist was released, Chu Fengmian felt that his spiritual energy was affected, as if it was out of his control. Of course, Chu Fengmian knew that this was the effect of the power of chaos. Chu Fengmian's mind moved, and he immediately communicated with the power of the natal sword origin. A wave of creation energy washed over Chu Fengmian's body, and the effect disappeared immediately. Although the power of chaos was overbearing, it was nothing in front of the creation energy. "Ants working together can't overturn the heavens," Chu Fengmian casually said. With a move of his body, the battle dragon claw once again collided with the Chaotic Divine Fist. "What? This person is not affected by the power of chaos? How is this possible?" the invigilating elder said in shock. The Chaotic Divine Fist formed by the four of them did not affect Chu Fengmian at all. One should know that the most overbearing power of the power of chaos was that it could affect the opponent's spiritual energy control and take the initiative. The four of them had never encountered such a situation when facing other martial artists. The Chaotic Divine Fist, which had worked every time, did not have any effect on Chu Fengmian, which made the invigilating elder panic for a moment. "Don't worry. With the four of us activating the power of the Saint Seed, he won't be able to resist," one of the elders suddenly shouted. "Activate all of your spiritual energy and kill him directly." The elder sensed the danger and did not have the intention to capture Chu Fengmian alive. He made up his mind and activated his spiritual energy again, pouring all of his spiritual energy into the punch. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian with this punch. The other three elders also did the same. Immediately, the power of the Chaotic Divine Fist began to rise again. Boom! The Chaotic Divine Fist collided with the Battle Dragon Claw in the air, and the outcome was decided in an instant. The power of the Chaotic Divine Fist was directly shattered. The power of the backlash caused the four elders to be directly sent flying. "You can die now," Chu Fengmian said coldly. Along with his voice, the Battle Dragon Claw shrouded the four elders. The four elders immediately felt the threat of death looming over them. "Chu Fengmian, you can't kill us. We're the elders of the North Sea Academy. If you dare to kill us, the Academy will definitely investigate you," the invigilating elder shouted. "Let us go today, and I'll let you pass the test. How about that?" "That's right. You can't kill us. If you kill us, you'll die too." This caused another elder to shout out loudly. If you let us go today, we'll call it even. Not killing you, even? Chu Fengmian said with a mocking smile. The Academy will investigate? Even? You dare to make things difficult for me and target me, which is a capital offense. You want to leave alive? Ridiculous. Chapter 607. Not to mention the elders of Beimang Academy, even the elders of the 7 major sects would die if they offended Chu Fengmian. Let them go? If he let them go, they would definitely cause trouble in the dark, and even come back to deal with Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian did not have the habit of letting his enemies go. There was only one way to deal with his enemies, and that was to kill them all. All of you, go to hell. Chu Fengmian's cold voice resounded. Although his voice was cold, the killing intent in it was resolute and decisive. No, you can't kill us. The invigilating elder did not give up and shouted loudly. However, before he could finish his words, the battle dragon claw fell from the sky and landed directly on him. The invigilating elder's body was directly crushed and turned into a cloud of blood mist. Only his head was left, and his expression was incomparably painful. Such an elder of Beimang's sacred region was killed just like that. The remaining 3 elders were so scared that they started to tremble. They originally thought that Chu Fengmian was just threatening them, but they did not expect that Chu Fengmian would really not care about the elders of Beimang's sacred region. As long as it was someone who offended him, he would kill anyone in his way. Bam! The 3 elders immediately knelt on the ground and begged Chu Fengmian loudly. Chu Fengmian, let us go. We are willing to work for you and never contact the sacred region again. At this moment, the 3 elders finally came to their senses and begged for mercy. However, Chu Fengmian's expression was still cold as usual, as if he did not see the 3 elders kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. All of you will die too. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and the battle dragon claw fell mercilessly again. Chu Fengmian had already given these 3 elders a chance to submit to him. Since they were unwilling to do so, there was no second chance for them now. Only death awaited them. No! Boom! An elder was instantly crushed into pieces by the claw of the battle dragon. His organs and body were turned into a bloody mist, leaving only his head behind. Damn it, brat, even if we become ghosts, we will not let you go. Just you wait, the sacred lord will avenge us. One of the elders roared in a frenzy, his face filled with fear. Sacred lord? Yi Tianjun will find you sooner or later. Don't worry. Chu Fengmian said indifferently. The bodies of the 2 elders were also directly crushed by the battle dragon claw. Their empty rings were taken by Chu Fengmian, and immediately, there were countless riches in them. The elders of northern Mang's sacred region are all filthy rich. Chu Fengmian looked at the empty ring and smiled. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian saw 2 jade tablets in the exam elder's spatial ring. There was no name engraved on the jade token. Chu Fengmian infused his spiritual energy into it, and his name appeared on the jade token. Jade Xians. With Xian, or with Jade. When Bai Xian saw the identity plate, she was overjoyed. Then, she said worriedly, if we kill these elders now, the Academy will definitely find out. What should we do? With them, Chu Fengmian said calmly. He killed the 4 elders using the martial skills of the Dragon Clan. Even if the experts of the North Sea Academy wanted to investigate, they would only be able to trace it back to the Dragon Clan. Naturally, Chu Fengmian could easily use this kind of method to divert the trouble. We just said that the exam elder left the academy in a hurry, and we don't know where he went. Chu Fengmian said, let's go. Let's distribute the cave abodes first. Once one was promoted to a seed disciple, one would be assigned a cave residence. Now that both of them had gotten their identity cards, they directly flew out. When he returned to his original spot, he bumped into the Supreme Elder. The Supreme Elder asked as he walked up to them, "Oh? Have the 2 of you finished the test? What was the result? Where is the Elder?" Mission accomplished. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian looked at each other and took out their identity cards. Seeing this identity card, the Supreme Elder's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. He naturally knew about the grudge between Chu Fengmian and the Saint faction. The Elder shouldn't have let Chu Fengmian pass the test. However, since Chu Fengmian had gotten his identity card, it meant that he had passed the test. "Where's the Elder? Why isn't he with you?" Reporting to the Supreme Elder, the Elder left in a hurry after the test. Chu Fengmian replied. The Supreme Elder casually replied without asking any further questions. "Let's go. Since you've been promoted to a seed disciple, you're now part of our Northern Mang sacred region. In our Northern Mang sacred region, there's a Saint Hall. It's dedicated to the past experts of our Northern Mang sacred region. Now that you've been promoted to a seed disciple, you have the qualification to enter it. I'll bring you over to have a look." The Supreme Elder waved his hand and brought Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian to a huge palace. There were countless restrictive arrays in the palace. The security here was beyond Chu Fengmian's imagination. With Chu Fengmian's strength, he couldn't break the countless restrictive arrays. It could be said that it was the most heavily guarded place in the Northern Mang sacred region. This Saint Hall is where our Northern Mang sacred region enshrines our ancestors. There are many martial skills, secret techniques, and inheritances left behind by our ancestors. If you can obtain the inheritance, you'll reach the heavens in a single bound. Bai Xian was very familiar with the Saint Hall and explained to Chu Fengmian. "It's too difficult to obtain the inheritance. Those who can obtain the inheritance in the Saint Hall are peerless geniuses." The Supreme Elder chuckled when he heard Bai Xian's words. The ancestors enshrined in the Saint Hall are all famous figures in the 9 regions. If you can comprehend a move or two and obtain a martial skill or secret technique, you'll reach the heavens in a single bound. You'll be heavily nurtured by the Academy. "Let's go, I'll bring you in." The Supreme Elder took a step forward and brought Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian into the Saint Hall. The inside of the Saint Hall was much bigger than it looked from the outside. It was like a small world. It was bottomless and had a completely different world. "These two are new disciples. They're here to comprehend the Saint Hall," the Supreme Elder casually said. Then, with a move of his body, he left. The Saint Hall enshrined the ancestors of the Northern Mang sacred region. There were countless martial skills, secret techniques, and inheritances left behind in the Saint Hall. Countless seed disciples in the Northern Mang sacred region participated in the Saint Hall. There was an endless stream of disciples entering the Saint Hall. Chapter 608. As soon as Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian entered the sacred hall, countless gazes were cast toward them. There were less than 100 seed disciples and core disciples in the Northern Mang sacred region. The sudden appearance of 2 unfamiliar faces immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding disciples. "There's a newcomer." 2 newcomers are promoted at the same time. "Didn't I hear that some ancient cave dwellings were opened in the void ocean? It seems like these 2 have obtained some good luck from the ancient cave dwellings. Doesn't that mean that they have a lot of treasures and fortunate encounters? Even if they're seeds, they're just ants at the bottom of the rankings. Let's find a chance to rob them and take away their fortunate encounters." Discussions broke out among the disciples. Many of them were looking at Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian with unfriendly gazes. In the Northern Mang sacred region, one had to fight for all the resources. It wasn't impossible for one to fight for treasures with the same sect. Those who could be promoted to seed disciples were no ordinary people. Every one of them here was stronger than Luo Zhanhen. The weak were prey to the strong. In the Northern Mang sacred region, those without strength could only be bullied by others. "Look, isn't that guy the newcomer king of this batch of newcomers? He's promoted to seed disciple after joining the Northern Mang sacred hall?" A seed disciple looked at Chu Fengmian and said in surprise. He seemed to have recognized Chu Fengmian's identity. "He's Han Yueli's husband? It's unexpected that the sacred faction would allow him to be promoted to seed disciple. Yi Tianjun is a meticulous person. He probably did it on purpose to let this guy suffer in the sacred region. He might be able to cover the sky with one hand outside, but he's just at the bottom of the hierarchy in the sacred region. Who's going to teach him a lesson? I'm afraid the sacred faction will benefit from teaching him a lesson. Let me do it. I'm going to make a deal with the sacred faction. I'll teach him a lesson and let him know that he's just a lowly ant in the northern Mang sacred region. He can only kneel on the ground. A seed disciple suddenly appeared and blocked Chu Fengmian's path. The appearance of this kind of disciple directly blocked Chu Fengmian's path. Stop. This kind of disciple said coldly. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he looked at the seed disciple who had come with ill intentions. It seemed that in this northern Mang academy, everyone really wanted to bully him. It wasn't just the people from the holy faction. Those who wanted to curry favor with the holy faction were also eyeing Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian was well aware of this, but his face was extremely calm as he spoke. What can I do for you? It's nothing much. The seed disciple's eyes flickered. He sized up Chu Fengmian, and his eyes were filled with greed as he said, I heard that junior brother had a lot of fortuitous encounters outside. I happen to need some wealth. If you have any king-grade spirit stones or royal-grade spirit stones, I'll let you go as long as you lend me a few hundred pieces. What do you think? A few hundred king-grade and emperor-grade spirit stones. This was clearly making things difficult for him. Although Chu Fengmian had a lot of wealth, he wouldn't waste it like this. A few hundred king-grade spirit stones? Royal-grade spirit stones? You think these are cabbages? You dare to deal with me with just you? Chu Fengmian's face revealed a cold expression. Get lost. If you don't get lost, you'll die. What? The surrounding seed disciples were stunned when they heard Chu Fengmian's words. His words were too arrogant. The newly promoted seed disciples who had just arrived at the northern Mang sacred region were all behaving with their tails between their legs. They would only stand out when they had enough strength. Now, Chu Fengmian was just a newly promoted seed disciple, but he was already so arrogant. It was beyond many people's expectations. This kind of arrogance was a little too overconfident. A newly promoted seed disciple was an invincible figure in the outside world, so they were arrogant. However, this kind of arrogance would vanish after being taught a lesson. Arrogant kid, you're just a newly promoted seed disciple. How dare you be so arrogant? Great, I'll teach you a lesson today to prevent you from causing more trouble. The seed disciple sneered and said arrogantly, I'll let you know that your strength is just an ant. As soon as his voice fell, the seed disciple suddenly attacked. A wave of spiritual energy was injected into the fist wind, and a punch was suddenly thrown out. Universal Truth Divine Fist. The punch seemed to contain the truth of heaven and earth. An incomparably terrifying spiritual energy was crazily emitted. This power seemed to be able to suppress everything. It was an overbearing punch. Universal Truth Divine Fist. Zheng Luo has actually comprehended this move. This is one of the ancestors of our Northern Mang Academy, the supreme martial skill created by the Universal Truth Heavenly Sovereign. It's close to heaven level. Although Chu Fengmian's strength is not bad, he hasn't comprehended the countless martial skills and secret skills in the Saint Hall. It's impossible for him to be Zheng Luo's opponent. One by one, the seed disciples spoke slowly. In the northern Mang sacred region, the most precious thing was the countless martial skills and secret skills left behind by the ancestors of the Northern Mang Academy. Comprehending one or two of them was enough to easily surpass one's level to fight. Not comprehending the countless martial skills and secret skills in the Saint Hall was a great disadvantage. If Chu Fengmian had comprehended it, there would still be suspense in this battle. However, if he hadn't comprehended it, there would be no suspense in this battle. The outcome was already decided. Die. Zheng Luo roared as the universal truth divine fist suddenly pressed down. This universal truth divine fist was indeed incomparably mysterious. Chu Fengmian could feel that this move was created by at least a great figure who had stepped onto the life and death step. However, facing Zheng Luo's punch, Chu Fengmian did not dodge. Instead, he clenched his fist and directly faced Zheng Luo's punch. Secret skill? Martial skill? Chu Fengmian had more secret skills and martial skills than the entire Northern Mang Academy. It was simply ridiculous to think that Zheng Luo would be able to contend with him just by learning this move. Zheng Luo, you want to teach me a lesson with just an ant like you? Extremely ridiculous. Today, I'll let you understand that there's nothing great about you old people. Chu Fengmian roared and clenched his hand into a fist. Then, he threw a punch. Chu Fengmian didn't even use his spiritual energy for this punch. He only activated the power of the ancient Dragon King body and used his physical body to contend against Zheng Luo's punch. Courting death. Seeing that Chu Fengmian was actually using his physical body to contend against Zheng Luo's punch, Zheng Luo's face changed and was filled with anger. Chu Fengmian didn't even use his spiritual energy. This was simply not putting him in his eyes. Which seed disciple in the Northern Mang sacred region wasn't a genius? When had they not been looked down upon like this? Chapter 609. The Truth of Heaven and Earth. The truth is invincible. Zheng Luo was enraged. He unleashed all of his spiritual energy and threw out a few punches. Endless fist wind blasted towards Chu Fengmian. Go to hell! Zheng Luo roared with a ferocious face. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian. You want to teach me a lesson with such puny attacks? Chu Fengmian smiled disdainfully. He moved his body and rushed forward. The countless fist wind blasted Chu Fengmian's body, but only the sound of metal colliding could be heard. Chu Fengmian's body didn't even have the slightest trace of injury amidst the countless fist winds. No attack could affect Chu Fengmian at all. What kind of body is this? Zheng Luo looked at Chu Fengmian in disbelief. Chu Fengmian was unscathed in the face of countless fist winds. His strongest move was actually unable to cause any damage to Chu Fengmian. How is this possible? Even if Zheng Luo has not mastered the Truth Divine Fist, I would not dare to take it head-on, let alone take it head-on. What's up with this kid's body? What a terrifying body. It's even stronger than Long Weiyang's body. I heard that he has the bloodline of the Dragon Clan. However, even the Dragon Clan would not have such a terrifying body. Cries of surprise rang out one after another. They all seemed to be filled with disbelief. In the Northern Mang sacred region, the battle between the seed disciples had always been fought with all of their strength. After all, every seed disciple was a peerless genius. Each of them had countless trump cards. It was unheard of for someone like Chu Fengmian to win with just his body. Everyone looked at Chu Fengmian as if they were looking at a monster. You're done. It's my turn now. Chu Fengmian's cold voice sounded. Chu Fengmian moved again and appeared in front of Zheng Luo in an instant. Lose. Chu Fengmian's fist blasted out. Zheng Luo's face turned pale. He panicked. Spiritual energy gathered in front of him and turned into countless barriers to block Chu Fengmian's attack. However, the countless barriers in front of him were instantly destroyed by this punch. That punch was not a martial skill. Instead, it was a punch formed purely from Chu Fengmian's physical strength. Chu Fengmian's fleshly body had already reached the pinnacle. It could be said that Chu Fengmian's fleshly body alone was enough to rival many high-level life and death experts. Chu Fengmian could easily defeat someone at the pinnacle of the divine force realm just by relying on his physical body alone. In the blink of an eye, the barrier in front of him was shattered. Zheng Luo's entire body was already ice-cold. He never imagined that Chu Fengmian would actually possess such terrifying strength. This punch was simply too powerful for him to resist. Since you dare to provoke me, I'll use you to establish my might. Chu Fengmian took a step forward and punched Zheng Luo's body with the power of his fist. In an instant, all the spiritual energy around Zheng Luo was completely destroyed. His body fell from midair and fell to the ground. He couldn't even struggle to get up. He could only fall to the ground like a dead dog and scream in pain. A seed disciple, who was already a genius who had comprehended some things in the Saint Hall, was actually defeated so miserably. What terrifying strength! He defeated Zheng Luo with just his physical body alone. Zheng Luo couldn't even withstand a single blow from this person. How is this possible? He's still a newcomer? He hasn't comprehended anything in the Saint Hall? If he comprehended something in the Saint Hall, he might even obtain an inheritance from one of the Saint Halls. How terrifying would that be? Terrifying. I originally thought that this person was deliberately let in by Yi Tianjun. But now, how is that possible? I'm afraid that even if the Saint faction wanted to make things difficult for him, it would be impossible. With such strength, the seed disciple assessment is simply child's play in front of him. It's impossible to make things difficult for him. There's actually another person in northern Mang's sacred region. This batch of newcomers is really terrifying. I didn't expect that not only Han Yueli, but Chu Fengmian is also so terrifying. Let's go and tell this news to Yi Tianjun and Lu Hua from the king's faction. Both of them want to pursue Han Yueli. They will definitely be interested in this news. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people couldn't help but step back. This Zheng Luo was now used by Chu Fengmian to establish his prestige. These old people didn't dare to deal with Chu Fengmian anymore. They all retreated and spread the news. Chu Fengmian was too lazy to pay attention to them. Since Chu Fengmian came to northern Mang's sacred region, he wouldn't have any scruples. What he wanted was arrogance, insolence. Chu Fengmian directly brought Bai Xian and swaggered into the Saint Hall. Along the way, countless seed disciples looked at Chu Fengmian as if they saw a demon. They all left one after another. No one dared to provoke Chu Fengmian. In the past, the newcomers in northern Mang's sacred region would take a detour when they saw the old people. They were afraid of provoking them. However, the situation was reversed. Countless old people would take a detour when they saw Chu Fengmian. They were afraid of provoking Chu Fengmian. This was also an extremely strange scene in northern Mang's sacred region. Such a powerful martial path. How many martial techniques and secret techniques are needed to condense such a terrifying martial path? As Chu Fengmian stepped into the Saint Hall, it was as if he had arrived at the pinnacle of martial arts. At a glance, there were countless statues standing on both sides of the Saint Hall. These statues were all incomparably large and lifelike. At a glance, they simply resembled living people. These statues contained a mysterious martial path. If one were to carefully comprehend it, one could see that each of these statues had purposely left behind a lot of martial path. It was enough for one to comprehend various martial techniques from them. Although my sword technique has integrated countless sword techniques from 10,000 years ago, I don't know how many peerless geniuses have appeared in these 10,000 years. The sword technique that they have condensed is also not to be underestimated. Chu Fengmian looked at one of the statues. This statue was a martial artist holding a spiritual sword. It was also one of the almighties in northern Mang's sacred region. The sword technique on this statue made Chu Fengmian's eyes light up. This was a sword technique that had not appeared 10,000 years ago. It was obvious that he had comprehended it now. Chu Fengmian's sword technique was originally the condensation of countless sword techniques from the 9 regions. It was the pinnacle of greater mastery. Now that Chu Fengmian had obtained a new sword technique that was born in the 10,000 years, it was enough for Chu Fengmian's sword technique to take another step forward. Chapter 610. I'm going to gather the sword arts of the past 10,000 years and extract their essence, which will allow my sword arts to improve further. Chu Fengmian's mind jolted as he suddenly understood. He looked at the statue and carefully comprehended the sword technique. The owner of the statue was a martial artist named Sword Pole Sage. He had stepped onto the life and death steps, but he had not stepped on all 9 steps. His swordsmanship was called the Sword Pinnacle Swordsmanship. It was a swordsmanship with extreme speed. In Chu Fengmian's opinion, although it was extremely noisy, he knew that he could comprehend some of the mysteries within. I want to gather all the sword techniques and transform them into the strongest sword technique. I will be the king of the 9 regions in the 9 regions, and it will be called the 9 regions sword technique. Chu Fengmian's mind moved, and all the sword techniques that he had comprehended merged together to form the 9 regions sword technique. In the future, Chu Fengmian would dominate the 9 regions with this sword technique. Let's go deeper and have a look. In a few minutes, Chu Fengmian had completely comprehended the sword technique of Sword Pole Sage. He glanced at Bai Xian, who was still comprehending the sword technique. Chu Fengmian did not wake Bai Xian up, but walked directly into the depths of the Saint Hall. The closer he got to the depths of the Saint Hall, the stronger the strength of the owner of the statue. The martial Tao contained within was also more obscure and difficult to comprehend. Although it was extremely powerful, among the disciples of the Beimang Academy, less than 1 in 100 could truly comprehend it. However, this was not a problem for Chu Fengmian. In his previous life, Chu Fengmian's understanding of the Sword Tao was even better than his master, the Master of Sword Tao. No matter how obscure the sword techniques were, Chu Fengmian could comprehend all of them. The essence of all the sword techniques was condensed by Chu Fengmian into his 9 regions sword technique, causing his 9 regions sword technique to sublimate. Every time he condensed a sword technique, Chu Fengmian could feel that his 9 regions sword technique had become more powerful and mysterious. The Beimang sacred region has so many ancestor statues, and the sword techniques, martial techniques, and secret techniques contained in them are difficult for others to comprehend. I never thought that they would give me such a great gift. Chu Fengmian looked at the countless statues in the Saint Hall that he had yet to comprehend, and he could not help but be overjoyed. If I comprehend all the sword techniques in these statues, my 9 regions sword technique will at least reach the initial level. By then, it will be enough to improve my strength. Ordinary sword cultivators could only comprehend one type of sword technique. This was because every sword principle had different mysteries. In particular, the mysteries of some sword principles conflicted with each other. If an ordinary sword cultivator were to cultivate multiple sword techniques, their abilities would probably regress instead of improving. Chu Fengmian's sword technique, and Sword Fengmian's sword Tao, sword technique. Chu Fengmian comprehended these sword techniques. Was it a... Chu Fengmian had already comprehended all of the statues in the Hall of Saint. Now, only the statue in the deepest part of the Saint Hall was left. It was said that the founder of the Beimang Academy was an extremely powerful sword cultivator. Chu Fengmian wanted to see what kind of person the founder of the Beimang Academy was. Chu Fengmian walked forward in the Saint Hall until he arrived in front of the largest statue. Just by getting close to the statue, the sharp sword intent within it was as if it would tear a person apart. Even the seed disciples of the Beimang sacred region did not dare to get close to the statue of the founder of the Beimang Academy. Only the best among them could get close and comprehend it. This statue, Chu Fengmian looked at the statue and felt the sword technique within. Suddenly, he felt a trace of familiarity. The sword technique and aura on the statue were very familiar to Chu Fengmian, especially the spiritual sword imprint in the center of the statue, which made Chu Fengmian's mind explode. Extreme Sword Seal. The imprint on the statue was the Extreme Sword Seal, the imprint of the former master of Sword Tao. Who is the founder of the Beimang Academy? Chu Fengmian was completely unfamiliar with the statue's appearance, but the sword will it contained, as well as the Extreme Tao Sword Seal, indicated that the statue had something to do with Chu Fengmian, the former lord of the Sword Tao. It was very likely that it was an existence that Chu Fengmian was very familiar with. There seems to be something sealed on the extreme sword seal. Chu Fengmian glanced around. After confirming that there was no one around, he quietly condensed a sword intent. The sword intent also turned into a spiritual sword that was exactly the same as the imprint on the statue and suddenly engraved on it. Boom! The spiritual sword returned to its position, and suddenly, a great change occurred on the statue. The surrounding space suddenly began to spin, as if everything in the surroundings had undergone a strange change. The sword intent emitted from the statue seemed to have directly sealed the surrounding space, causing the surrounding space to undergo such a change. Except for Chu Fengmian, no one else could step into this space. The appearance of the statue had also changed. From a white-haired old man, it had turned into a young man. This man had an imposing appearance. Although he was young, there was a kind of calmness in his eyes that did not match his age. Eldest senior brother? Seeing the statue's appearance, Chu Fengmian suddenly opened his mouth. Wasn't this the chief disciple of the former master of Sword Dao, Chu Fengmian's eldest senior brother, Jianling? Chu Fengmian never imagined that the founder of the Beimang Academy would be Chu Fengmian's eldest senior brother, Jianling. 10,000 years ago, the master of Sword Dao was besieged by the 7 major sects, and countless of Chu Fengmian's senior brothers and sisters died in the pursuit of the 7 major sections. But now, Chu Fengmian did not expect the Beimang Academy to be founded by Jianling. This made Chu Fengmian a little stunned for a moment. But vaguely, Chu Fengmian also felt that the things that happened 10,000 years ago were not as simple as he imagined. For example, Hanyu Li's swordsmanship also came from Chu Fengmian's sect. This also proved that Chu Fengmian's senior brothers and sisters did not all die. At least, Chu Fengmian's eldest senior brother, Jianling, survived, but he concealed his identity and established the Beimang Academy. Young man, I didn't expect you to know how to break the extreme sword seal. Chapter 6:11. A voice suddenly rang out from the statue. This voice was extremely clear, but it was enough to make others hear it. It was a voice that was steady and extremely reassuring. Eldest senior brother? Chu Fengmian was extremely excited when he heard the voice. It was the voice of his eldest senior brother, Jianling. Although it had been 10,000 years, Chu Fengmian still felt extremely close when he heard it now. Chu Fengmian used to have countless senior brothers. In the sect, the master of the Sword Dao was high and mighty. He was busy with many matters and Jianling was in charge of many of them. In particular, many of the younger junior brothers were taken care of by Jianling. Chu Fengmian had grown up on the sky-ceasing peak. Among the countless senior brothers and senior sisters, Jianling was the one who took care of him the most besides his 4th senior sister. Because of this, Chu Fengmian was able to recognize Jianling's voice even after 10,000 years. Eldest senior brother, you're not dead? Chu Fengmian shouted at the statue. However, the statue ignored Chu Fengmian and continued to speak. I originally thought that no one would be able to decipher this extreme sword seal. However, since you can hear these words, it means that you are able to decipher it. Jianling's voice came from the statue again. However, this time it sounded like a machine. Chu Fengmian finally understood. This voice was indeed Jianling's. However, it was left behind by Jianling 10,000 years ago. Jianling had already passed away and only left behind this voice. I, Jianling, am the disciple of the master of the Sword Dao. However, I was besieged by the 7 great sects. My master fell at the hands of the 7 great sects. Countless junior brothers and junior sisters all perished. I, Jianling, do not wish for my master's legacy to disappear just like that. Hence, I specially established the Northern Sea Academy to continue the legacy. However, I can only conceal my identity in front of the 7 great sects. Since you are able to decipher this extreme sword seal, it means that you are fated to meet us. I will leave my legacy to you. I hope that after you cultivate it, you can kill your way to the 7 great sects and avenge your master. Jianling's voice dissipated. After a long time, Chu Fengmian's expression slowly returned to normal. Hearing Jian Ling's voice once again made Chu Fengmian extremely happy. However, Jian Ling's words made Chu Fengmian's heart sink. He had thought that some of his countless senior brothers and sisters would still be alive. However, from Jian Ling's words, it seemed that countless of his senior brothers and sisters had all died at the hands of the 7 sections. The only thing left was for him to establish the North Sea Academy on his own, so that his legacy could be passed down. There was such an ancient book in front of Chu Fengmian. There were only 2 words written on it: Sword Dao. Chu Fengmian knew that this was the condensation of the Sword Dao of the Master of the Sword Dao, a treasure that the 7 great sects yearned for even in their dreams. 10,000 years later, I'm afraid that even eldest senior brother wouldn't have thought that I would be the one to survive. Chu Fengmian looked at the ancient book with a complicated expression. It was this ancient book that had led to the destruction of Chu Feng's family. However, the Master of the Sword Dao was unwilling to hand it over even in death. In his heart, the ancient book was more important than his life. I will avenge Master's death. I will also ensure that eldest senior brother's legacy continues to be passed down. Chu Fengmian faced the statue of Jian Ling, knelt down and kowtowed 3 times. It was a form of gratitude to Jian Ling for leaving behind the legacy for the Master of the Sword Dao. It was also a form of repayment for his past kindness. Chu Fengmian grabbed the ancient book and put it away. The countless sword intents in it suddenly rushed into Chu Fengmian's mind. This is... In Chu Fengmian's mind, there were countless images dancing in it. The figures in the images were all using the essence of swordsmanship. This was the accumulation of the Master of the Sword Dao. The Master of the Sword Dao had seen countless sword techniques during his travels in the 9 domains. Countless sword intents were suddenly emitted from Chu Fengmian's body. These sword techniques were all integrated into the 9 domains sword technique by Chu Fengmian. The sword techniques in this ancient book were 10 times or even 100 times more than what Chu Fengmian had previously understood. It was as if the entire 9 domains, including the sword techniques of the extraterrestrial demons and countless monster clans, had been recorded. It was the general outline of countless sword techniques in the world. It was no wonder that the 7 major sects wanted to obtain it at all costs. This ancient book was truly a priceless treasure for any sword cultivator. Chu Fengmian sat on the ground, comprehending the contents bit by bit. His sword techniques were getting stronger and stronger. The words, 9 domains, appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. Behind the words, there was an ocean condensed from sword intent. Chu Fengmian's vast sword intent was now like a boundless ocean. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. In this strange space, Chu Fengmian sat on the ground, comprehending the countless sword techniques recorded in the ancient book bit by bit. He absorbed all the essences of these sword techniques and integrated them into his 9 zones sword technique. His 9 domains sword technique was now at the small accomplishment level. In terms of power, it was enough to surpass a heaven-class martial technique. Slaughter sword technique and fertility sword technique were nothing in front of the 9 domains sword technique. This was because Chu Fengmian had integrated the most essence of these 2 sword techniques into his 9 domains sword technique. He had created a completely different and extremely mysterious sword technique. In the 9 domains sword technique, he could even feel the Azura sword technique, the Dragon Clan's sword technique, and countless other alien clans' sword technique. This was far from over. Another 3 days passed. Chu Fengmian sat on the ground, comprehending the sword techniques in the ancient book every moment. Even if Chu Fengmian comprehended each sword technique, it would not take long for him to comprehend each sword technique. However, there were too many sword techniques in this ancient book. There were thousands, tens of thousands of sword technique. There were even sword techniques that had been lost for a long time in this ancient book. Chu Fengmian's 9 domains sword technique gradually condensed and began to transform step by step towards perfection. Boom! After a total of 7 days, a surge of sword intent completely burst out from Chu Fengmian's body. The moment the surge of sword intent appeared, it seemed to represent that Chu Fengmian's sword technique had reached a new level. His 9 domains sword technique had finally reached the great accomplishment level. Chu Fengmian's body and every move seemed to contain the truth of sword principles. Originally, Chu Fengmian would have to spend a period of time to comprehend the 9 domains sword technique even with the help of countless sword techniques in the Sage Hall. But now it was completely condensed. Chapter 6:12. 7 days. 7 days had passed since Chu Fengmian entered the Saint Hall. During these 7 days, Chu Fengmian constantly refined his 9-domain sword technique. Most of the time, he spent comprehending the sword techniques recorded in the ancient swordsmanship book. Chu Fengmian had already refined the framework of the 9 regions sword art. As long as Chu Fengmian learned more sword arts, it would be enough to improve the 9 regions sword art. The 9 regions sword art was created by Chu Fengmian. As Chu Fengmian's strength increased, it would also become more powerful. In the future, it might even surpass any sword art in the history of the 9 regions. Although Chu Fengmian's strength and realm didn't change, the 9 regions sword art had transformed the sword intent on his body. The current Chu Fengmian was likely much more powerful than before he had entered the Saint's Hall. His temperament had undergone a great change, turning into a noble aura. Chu Fengmian didn't know what level his strength had reached, but when facing the Supreme Elder, Chu Fengmian thought that he could only retreat unscathed. But now, Chu Fengmian thought that he might be able to put up a fight against the Supreme Elder. The increase in strength from the sword intent wasn't as simple as gaining strength. As Chu Fengmian grew stronger, his sword intent also became stronger. It could be said that the benefits he gained were far more than what he could see. If the current Chu Fengmian encountered someone like the Undying Demon Venerable, he would be able to kill him with a wave of his hand. The Undying Demon Venerable was also a powerhouse, but he was only an ant in front of Chu Fengmian. Even if Chu Fengmian's strength wasn't comparable to those old antiques who had surpassed the limit of life and death realm and stepped onto the life and death stair, he had already surpassed ordinary life and death realm expert. With this strength, even if I don't rashly pass the life and death calamity, I'll be able to stand firm in northern Mang's sacred region. At least, if Yi Tianjun wants to deal with me, I'll be able to resist him. Killing intent flashed in Chu Fengmian's eyes. He would trample Yi Tianjun under his feet sooner or later. Let's go. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and the surrounding space began to change, gradually returning to its original state. Chu Fengmian also returned to the Saint's Hall from this strange space. His figure moved and he strode away. Just as Chu Fengmian left the strange space and returned to the Saint's Hall, a jade talisman in his spatial ring suddenly flickered. He received a message from it. Bai Xian was kidnapped? Chu Fengmian's expression instantly darkened. The news was told to him by Bai Xian, who said that he was captured by a few seed disciples. If he wanted to save Bai Xian, he would have to bring Chu Fengmian to the arena of life and death. The life and death arena was the place where the seed disciples of the northern Mang sanctuary settled their grudges. On the life and death arena, one's life and death were up to the heavens. Even if one killed the other party, the academy would not pursue the matter. Those people had captured Bai Xian in order to force Chu Fengmian onto the life and death arena. You're courting death. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. The anger in his body was truly unleashed. If someone wanted to deal with him, Chu Fengmian would not care. He would deal with whatever came his way. Chu Fengmian would just kill whoever came. However, they had captured Bai Xian to threaten him. This was simply breaking the rules in Chu Fengmian's heart. These people were really courting death. How dare they threaten Chu Fengmian? Chu Fengmian hated being threatened the most in his life. Very well. I would like to see who's courting death. Rumble. Chu Fengmian's figure suddenly moved. He turned into a ray of light and rushed out from the saint's hall. What a fast ray of light! Who is it? How can there be such a fast ray of light? Some of the saint's hall's disciples exclaimed when they saw Chu Fengmian's ray of light. They could not see Chu Fengmian's figure clearly. Some of the reckless people who wanted to stop Chu Fengmian were directly sent flying and vomited blood. The ray of light left the saint's hall and flew towards the life and death arena in the northern Mang sanctuary. On the life and death arena. Currently, there were 7 or 8 people standing there. These 7 or 8 people were the seed disciples of the Northern Mang Academy. Among them, there was a woman standing at the side. Countless seals were placed on her body, and she was directly suppressed. She was Bai Xian. The leader of this group of people was a handsome man. Every movement of this man exuded an extremely noble aura. Beside him, there was a surge of spiritual energy that condensed into dragon scales that were similar to Chu Fengmian's. Senior Long Weiyang, do you think Chu Fengmian will come? One of the seed disciples said to the man in the lead. Although we've captured Bai Xian, a place like the life and death arena is not a place that anyone dares to step into. He must know the danger inside. Why hasn't he come after such a long time? Did he run away? Another seed disciple spoke out. Chu Fengmian is a newbie after all. If he doesn't come, what should we do? Not coming. The leading man, Long Weiyang, sneered. Given this kid's character, he will definitely come. If he doesn't come, then my efforts to deal with him won't be in vain. Senior Long Weiyang, this kid is already half dead. He offended Yi Tianjun of the Saint faction and even injured the younger brother of the royal factions, Lu Hua. Even if we don't do anything, Yi Tianjun and Lu Hua will not let him go. Why do we have to do it? A seed disciple asked curiously. Our dragon faction doesn't need to participate. Humph, this kid is obviously using the dragon clan's martial technique. He obtained the dragon clan's martial technique and used it. Even I have never seen it before. Long Weiyang's eyes were filled with greed. If I can get my hands on this martial skill, I'll be able to defeat Yi Tianjun and Lu Hua and become the strongest person in Northern Mang Sacred Zone. Then, our Dragon Society will become the strongest faction in Northern Mang Sacred Zone. Just wait and see. Chu Fengmian is here. I'll definitely kill him and take all of his treasures. Is that so? Kill me? I'm here now. Let's see how you're going to kill me. An icy voice could be heard all of a sudden, as a beam of light landed on the life and death ring. This figure was Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's face was cold. Although his voice was cold, the killing intent in it was not concealed. It made people shudder when they heard it. Chapter 613. Chu Fengmian appeared. He swaggered onto the platform of life and death. He faced off against Long Weiyang's group. He's much stronger than he was 7 days ago. A disciple of the dragon faction exclaimed. 7 days ago, he'd seen Chu Fengmian defeat Zheng Luo in the Sacred Hall. However, Chu Fengmian's aura hadn't been this terrifying back then. The current Chu Fengmian was much scarier than he was 7 days ago. His aura was definitely that of an important figure. Chu Fengmian had comprehended everything in the ancient book of Sword Dao, and his aura was close to that of the Master of Sword Dao. The Master of Sword Dao was a figure of the 9 regions' sword peak, and his sword Dao surpassed Dragon Emperor Yen Gu. This kind of aura was enough to make one tremble in fear. This aura is so ancient. He might have obtained the inheritance of an ancestor in the Sacred Hall. Another disciple of the dragon faction sized up Chu Fengmian with a sharp gaze. Some of the more talented disciples in the Sacred Hall had the chance to obtain the inheritance of an ancestor of the Beimang Academy. That was the only thing they could think of when they saw the change in Chu Fengmian's aura. Oh? Did he get another fortuitous encounter? Long Weiyang's eyes were fixed on Chu Fengmian, and he suddenly laughed. That's fine. I'm going to be a dead man soon anyway. The more fortuitous encounters I have, the better. The more fortuitous encounters I have, the more I can get. Chu Fengmian? Bai Xian was stunned when she saw Chu Fengmian. She then shouted, "Let's go." This was the platform of life and death. In Beimang's sacred region, anyone who came to the platform of life and death was in the hands of the heavens. Long Weiyang's group had captured Bai Xian and forced Chu Fengmian to come to the platform of life and death to deal with him. Bai Xian knew that Long Weiyang had captured her to deal with Chu Fengmian. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone to such lengths to deal with her. Now that Chu Fengmian had appeared on the platform of life and death, Bai Xian understood everything. Joy flashed through her heart, but it was quickly replaced by panic. And now, Chu Fengmian was facing Long Weiyang of the Dragon Society. Long Weiyang was one of the top experts in the Northern Mang sacred domain, an invincible expert. She had founded the Dragon Society, and had a very high position in the Northern Mang sacred domain. Bai Xian was clear that Chu Fengmian was powerful enough to kill high-level life and death experts. However, Long Weiyang's strength was also very strong. He had once fought against a high-level life and death expert, and even directly killed him. Chu Fengmian's strength was enough to face Long Weiyang. Most likely, he would lose more than he would win. Fighting on the life and death platform was no longer a matter of winning or losing. If he lost, it meant that he had fallen. There was no chance at all. After entering the life and death arena, there was no possibility of holding back. Let him go. Chu Fengmian ignored Bai Xian as if he hadn't heard her at all. His cold eyes swept across the crowd of Dragon Faction disciples. Chu Fengmian's every word was incomparably cold. Although his expression was calm, it was still incomparably cold. However, anyone would be able to tell that Chu Fengmian was truly enraged at that moment. In the past, Chu Fengmian had an extremely calm and indifferent character. However, it was precisely because of this that Chu Fengmian's anger caused others to feel extreme terror. Let him go? Brat, are you dreaming? A Dragon Faction disciple sneered coldly. This is the life and death arena. Since you dared to come here, you're already a dead man. You want us to let him go? Right now, senior brother Long Weiyang wants your fortuitous encounter. If you know what's good for you, kneel down and submit to our Dragon Faction. Hand over all your fortuitous encounter and you'll be spared from death. When Chu Fengmian heard the Dragon Faction disciple's words, he raised an eyebrow. Let him go. These two words were filled with impatience. Ha ha, Chu Fengmian, a newly promoted seed disciple, an ant-like character, dares to threaten our Dragon Faction? That seed disciple laughed loudly. Not to mention you, even a clay Buddha can't save himself today. You want us to let him go? What a joke, it seems like you've lost your mind. You won't let him go. Chu Fengmian slowly raised his head and said word by word. If that's the case, then all of you can go to hell. Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy suddenly burst out, and his killing intent exploded. The primordial slaughter god's shadow instantly condensed behind him. Chu Fengmian's slaughter sword art was more powerful the stronger his killing intent was. His aura rose steadily, and under the influence of his killing intent, he actually began to merge with the primordial slaughter god's shadow. His body became incomparably tall and mighty, and suddenly, he struck out with his palm. The dragon force in this palm turned into numerous primordial battle dragons. As the palm struck out, the dragons roared, and for a moment, the whole place was filled with dragon roars. The dragons danced, and heaven and earth cracked. The power of this palm shrouded the entire life and death arena. The target of this palm was not only the Dragon Faction disciple, but also all of the Dragon Faction disciples present on the life and death arena. One person suddenly attacked everyone present on the scene. This action was simply crazy to the extreme. Every seed disciple in Beimang's sacred region was blessed by the heavens. If placed outside, any one of them could easily defeat someone like Luo Zhanhan. Yet, one person dared to attack all of them. All of the Dragon Faction disciples were enraged. Lin Fan's actions showed that he had no respect for them at all. To them, it was an absolute insult. You overestimate yourself. How dare you go against our dragon faction? Countless dragon faction disciples roared at the same time, and a huge amount of spiritual energy burst out. Suddenly, countless martial techniques were blasted out to resist Chu Fengmian's attack. As for Long Weiyang, he moved away from the life and death arena and stood in the distance. Based on his character, he disdained to join a group of people. His eyes coldly watched the battle between the dragon faction disciples and Chu Fengmian. Even if 100, 1,000, or even 10,000 of you join forces, you still won't be a match for me. Chu Fengmian's eyes were full of disdain as he looked at the dragon faction disciples. If it were in the past, Chu Fengmian might have been afraid when facing a group of dragon faction disciples. However, ever since Chu Fengmian comprehended the Nine Realms sword art, his strength had skyrocketed. In Chu Fengmian's eyes, these people were just slightly bigger and, if he wanted to crush them, he could do it with a wave of his hand. Chapter 6:14. Rumble. Chu Fengmian's body grew even larger as he spoke. The primordial war dragon was an invincible existence in the Nine Realms. Chu Fengmian's Nine Realms swordsmanship and his bloodline were a perfect match for each other. Together, Chu Fengmian's aura became even more terrifying. Chu Fengmian was the symbol of invincibility. What dragon faction? Holy faction? Royal faction? I'll kill anyone who dares to mess with me. How dare you mess with my friends? Today will be the day of your destruction. Chu Fengmian calmly said as he looked at the corpses of the dragon faction's disciples. Now, I'll destroy the dragon faction and show you my power. I'll let everyone know the consequences of messing with me. Chu Fengmian's anger was unprecedented. He had never been angry when dealing with Chu Fengmian, but those who dared to mess with his people had truly touched his reverse scale. If he couldn't keep a low profile, he had to be arrogant. Chu Fengmian was so arrogant that everyone feared him. Everyone feared him. Today, the dragon faction would be destroyed. Destroy! Chu Fengmian spat out a word, and the power of his palm grew countless times stronger. Countless dragons fused into one and turned into an enormous ancient era's battle dragon. It descended from the sky and attacked. Their target was none other than Bai Xian. They wanted to break the restrictions on her and rescue her. Don't let him save her. A disciple of the dragon faction shouted. He could see that Chu Fengmian's strength was no longer the same as before. He was already considered a giant in Beimang's sacred region. He was someone who could contend with Long Weiyang, Yi Tianjun, and Lu Hua. Now that Bai Xian was in their hands, they could still make Chu Fengmian wary. If Bai Xian was rescued, Chu Fengmian would be unscrupulous. Several dragon faction disciples rushed toward Bai Xian in an attempt to restrain her. However, the primordial war dragon formed by Chu Fengmian's palm was even faster. It roared crazily and suddenly. The dragon faction disciples were sent flying, spitting out mouthfuls of blood as they fell to the ground. At the same time, the seal on Bai Xian was broken and she was brought to Chu Fengmian's side. Damn it! A dragon faction disciple's face darkened when he saw Chu Fengmian rescue Bai Xian. Let's kill him. His strength is terrifying. If we don't kill him today, he'll be a disaster. That's right. Kill. This is the arena of life and death. If we kill him, the Academy won't be able to blame us. King of 10,000 dragons. Kill. The dragon faction disciples' spiritual energies gathered the spiritual energy. In front of him, the boundless spiritual energy transformed into a gigantic dragon king. Under the dragon king's command were countless true dragons. It was the king of 10,000 dragons. The manifestation of this spiritual energy was an extremely terrifying expert of the dragon clan, the king of 10,000 dragons. Not good. That's a secret magic of the Dragon Society. Countless Dragon Society disciples can form the king of myriad dragons. It's enough to destroy everything. No matter how powerful a martial artist is, they will all be killed. Bai Xian said to Chu Fengmian when she saw the king of dragons forming. The dragon faction is strong. Let's leave first. With your talent, as long as you survive the Great Tribulation, destroying the dragon faction won't be a problem. There's no need to tangle with them now. It's fine. Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a cold smile. Since he was here today, he had no intention of leaving. Even if he wanted to leave, he would destroy the dragon faction first. The dragon faction would be destroyed today. No matter who came, they would not be able to save them. Just a few chickens and pottery dogs. Do you think you won't pay the price after dealing with me for so long? Isn't that a disgrace to me? King of 10,000 dragons? If this is the king of 10,000 dragons, then I'm the ancestor of dragons. War dragons might. Facing the king of 10,000 dragons that had condensed, Chu Fengmian's body moved and he suddenly roared. All 12,960 drops of ancient war dragon's blood essence were activated. His body instantly transformed into a real primordial war dragon in the air. In front of the primordial war dragon, the king of 10,000 dragons' aura and dragon's might were completely suppressed. All the true dragons today were the remnants of the primordial war dragon's bloodline. Even a dragon emperor was like a grandson in front of a real primordial war dragon. How dare you use the superficial dragon clan's martial skills in front of me? You're just a speck of light. Die. Chu Fengmian turned into a primordial war dragon and activated the power of his dragon claw. The incomparably huge war dragon claw fell from the sky. The king of 10,000 dragons was directly smashed into two halves. With a miserable cry, it was almost instantly destroyed and strangled to death. Destroy the king of 10,000 dragons? The king of 10,000 dragons is an immortal existence. It can't be destroyed no matter what. The dragon faction's disciples did not panic when they saw the king of 10,000 dragons. Instead, they activated their spiritual power. The king of 10,000 dragons, which was destroyed a moment ago, was once again resurrected. The power of the king of 10,000 dragons became even stronger. The resurrection capture actually caused the king of 10,000 dragons to rise steadily. The king of 10,000 dragons is said to be immortal. Every time it is destroyed and reborn, it will become even stronger. Bai Xian obviously knew about the king of 10,000 dragons and hurriedly shouted to Chu Fengmian. It is said that the king of 10,000 dragons is formed by the activation of a dragon clan's supreme treasure. It is impossible to destroy. Even if it is destroyed 10,000 times, it will be reborn and condensed. The supreme treasure of the dragon clan? Chu Fengmian's eyes were like torches as he scanned the king of 10,000 dragons. Suddenly, he saw a wooden totem in the king of 10,000 dragons. Dragon King Totem? The wooden totem's power was not inferior to a heaven-grade spiritual artifact. It was a supreme treasure formed by some dragon kings using their own dragon's might. Obviously, it was a supreme treasure formed by the owner of the king of 10,000 dragons. Only the dragon faction's disciples could activate their spiritual power to form the king of 10,000 dragons. As long as the Dragon King Totem was not destroyed, the king of 10,000 dragons would not be destroyed. After countless destruction, it would be reborn. The Dragon King Totem has been desecrated by you people. Give it to me and merge it into my body. It will return to its origin. You people are not worthy of the Dragon King Totem, Chu Fengmian said calmly. The primordial war dragon that he had transformed into struck out with its claw once again. As the claw struck out, the spiritual energy in the air transformed into an incomparably huge array. Forming an array with one hand. In terms of martial skills, the primordial war dragon that he had transformed into was more profound than a real dragon. In an instant, he had formed an array. Boom! The king of 10,000 dragons was firmly suppressed by this array. Chapter 6:15. The countless disciples of the dragon faction had formed the powerful king of 10,000 dragons. Now, in the hands of Chu Fengmian, he was easily suppressed. He couldn't even put up the slightest resistance. Roar! The king of 10,000 dragons was still roaring crazily under the suppression of the array. However, Chu Fengmian pointed his finger. The body of the king of 10,000 dragons abruptly exploded, and a wooden totem flew out from within. Not good! Put away the Dragon King totem. He's trying to take the Dragon King totem. The disciples of the dragon faction roared when they saw Chu Fengmian's actions. They wanted to stop Chu Fengmian from taking the Dragon King totem. A bunch of ants. How dare you resist if I don't kill you first? Since that's the case, I'll kill you first. Let's see who dares to challenge my authority. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at the disciples of the dragon faction. As he spoke, Chu Fengmian's body moved again. His claw fell from the sky, but the 5 fingers on the claw split into 5 rays of sword light. The 5 rays of sword light slashed downwards. The surrounding space hissed, as if the sharpness of the sword light was going to tear the space apart. One should know that Beimang's sacred region was not one of the 9 regions. It was a remnant of the ancient continent, and its laws were extremely tough. But even so, the surrounding space was still hissing. One could tell how sharp the sword ray was. The disciples of the dragon faction were terrified. They seemed to have sensed the danger of the sword light. One by one, they threw out countless martial techniques and retreated in an attempt to resist. However, as the sword light flashed, the disciples of the dragon faction were killed one by one. Not even a bit of flesh was left as they were engulfed by the sword light and completely destroyed. Only puddles of blood were left on the ground. When they saw the fresh blood, the expressions of the countless seed disciples in the surroundings were filled with astonishment. It was not unusual for disciples to die on the combat platform. Most of the seed disciples of the Northern Sea Academy had died on the life and death arena. However, this scene was unheard of. 7 or 8 disciples of the dragon faction died at Chu Fengmian's hands. One against many, and he could even defeat them easily. Every seed disciple was a peerless genius in the outside world, but now in the hands of Chu Fengmian, they were like ants that could be crushed to death. Invincible. Apart from this word, no one present could think of any other word to describe Chu Fengmian. With such strength, is he still human? So many people from the Dragon Society besieged him, but he easily dispelled them all with a single move. Where did this person come from? He and Hanueli, each more monstrous than the other. I thought that one Hanueli was extremely rare, but I didn't expect him to be here as well. These two are husband and wife. How is this possible? This guy is definitely an authority. He's strong enough to take on Long Weiyang, Yi Tianjun, Lu Hua, and the core disciples. This time, the dragon faction has kicked an iron plate. However, Long Weiyang hasn't made a move yet. The Dragon Society isn't strong because of the disciples, it's because of Long Weiyang. He alone is stronger than the entire Dragon Society. If he makes a move, it's hard to say. One by one, the seed disciples were discussing this matter. The battle between Chu Fengmian and the Dragon Society had attracted the attention of countless disciples in northern Mang's sacred region. They all rushed over to watch the battle. Far away from the life and death arena, in a pavilion on a mountain peak, several disciples were sitting and drinking tea. Everyone was watching the battle on the life and death arena. The aura of these people far surpassed that of the seed disciples. They were true overlords and core disciples of northern Mang's sacred region. The core disciples were overlords like Long Weiyang and Yi Tianjun. Some of them kept a low profile, so they didn't establish their own factions. However, this didn't mean that they were weak. On the contrary, each of them had the potential to compete for the position of the next principal of Northern Mang's Sacred Academy. Even if they failed, they would at least be the Supreme Elder or the Vice Principal. There were a total of 3 core disciples sitting in the pavilion, drinking tea and watching Chu Fengmian kill the Dragon Society's disciples by himself. Chu Fengmian's strength isn't bad. He's a newcomer. When he first entered the sacred region, he was just a little guy with some strength. I didn't expect him to be on the same level as us now. A core disciple sipped his tea as he looked at Chu Fengmian with interest. It seems like Yi Tianjun has gotten himself into big trouble. On the same level? Lu Qingping, you think too highly of him. Is he worthy of being on the same level as us? Another core disciple said disdainfully. His strength is enough to cause trouble for Yi Tianjun? I think he's going to die in Long Weiyang's hands today. His strength is good, but it's impossible for him to fight against Long Weiyang. Gu Aihan, you had the same attitude when you met Han Yueli last time. What about now? Han Yueli is already a popular person in the academy. She even obtained the inheritance of the ancestor. When she comes out of seclusion, I'm afraid we won't be her match. Lu Qingping said calmly. However, Chu Fengmian is too arrogant. This is the northern Mang sacred region. The waters are deep. Even we don't dare to be too presumptuous. A tree that stands out in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. This kid doesn't understand this principle. That Han Yueli is just relying on her body. She's the innate divine body, the profound cold body. That's why she's able to defeat me. As long as someone can obtain her profound cold body, it's enough to take away the power of her profound cold body. Gu Aihan said coldly. Although this kid and Han Yueli are husband and wife, the power of Han Yueli's profound cold body has not been obtained by him. As long as I obtain Han Yueli, it's enough to take away his power. At that time, I'll be invincible. You'll have to obtain it first. There are many people who want to pursue Han Yueli. Even the prince of the southern region royal family has come to the northern Mang Academy to propose marriage. Lu Qingping shook his head and said sarcastically, Do you think you can win against the prince of the southern region royal family? You! Gu Aihan's face darkened when he heard the sarcasm. Just as he was about to say something, another core disciple beside him interrupted. Let's not fight for now. Long Weiyang is about to make her move. Following his words, the crowd calmed down. They ignored the gazes and looked towards the direction of the life and death ring. It's a little late today, but I'll still give it to you. Thank you for the reward. Chapter 6:16. The sight of Chu Fengmian slaughtering the disciples of the Dragon Society was shocking to the seated disciples, as well as many of the elders who had been in hiding. Now, another ferocious person had appeared in Beimang's sacred region. Boom! The king of 10,000 dragons was firmly suppressed by Chu Fengmian. Its body suddenly shattered, and the Dragon King totem flew out from within. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and grabbed at the Dragon King totem, intending to grab it in his hand. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly attacked the Dragon King totem as well. It was the leader of the dragon faction, Long Weiyang. In front of the Dragon King totem, Long Weiyang did not care about his face and suddenly attacked. The Dragon King totem was a treasure that he relied on. He did not dare to let Chu Fengmian have it. Long Weiyang suddenly made a move. His spiritual power also transformed into a dragon claw, which suddenly clawed at the Dragon King totem. Long Weiyang's spiritual energy also turned into the shape of a real dragon in the air. The dragons gathered and turned into a huge dragon claw, trying to grab the Dragon King totem again. How can you not pay a price for killing me? This Dragon King totem belongs to me now. Leave it behind. Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a cold smile as he faced Long Weiyang's dragon claw. He waved his hand and it also turned into a dragon claw. This was a confrontation of real Dragon Clan martial skills. In Beimang Academy, Long Weiyang had always been the #1 Dragon Clan martial skill. It was said that Long Weiyang did not have a fortuitous encounter with the Dragon Clan. His father was a Dragon King of the true Dragon Clan. It was because of this that he obtained the Dragon King totem and possessed the extremely noble blood. His martial skill surpassed the ordinary true dragon clan. It was a true Dragon King martial skill. How dare you use a Dragon Clan martial skill in front of me? You overestimate yourself. Long Weiyang sneered when he saw Chu Fengmian also forming a dragon claw to attack. I have the Dragon King bloodline. All dragons will be suppressed by me. Dragon King real body. Come out. The shadow of a Dragon King suddenly appeared behind Long Weiyang. Gradually, his body also turned into the appearance of a Dragon King. Now, he suddenly looked like a real Dragon King. The king of 10,000 dragons. Waves of dragon power gathered on his dragon claw. When the dragon claw came down, it was as if it was going to crush the surrounding space. Dragon King real body. The rumor about Long Weiyang is true. What he obtained was not a fortuitous encounter of the Dragon Clan, but his father, a true Dragon King. He was born with this noble bloodline that surpasses the true dragon. Some of the seed disciples of the Beimang Academy exclaimed when they saw Long Weiyang's transformation. Long Weiyang's Dragon King was the Dragon King real body, and Long Weiyang was the Dragon King's real Dragon King. The Dragon King's body didn't bother to hide it at all, exploding all of Long Weiyang's trump cards. Chu Fengmian's strength is indeed powerful, but his fortuitous encounter is the Dragon Clan's fortuitous encounter. He is naturally restrained by Long Weiyang. His strength is not as good as Long Weiyang's, and most of his strength is due to his fortuitous encounter. Without the advantage of the Dragon Clan's fortuitous encounter, Chu Fengmian will lose. Gu Aihan looked at Chu Fengmian from afar and coldly said, "This kid will die within 3 moves." The remaining 2 core disciples looked at Chu Fengmian and nodded their heads after hearing Gu Aihan's words. Chu Fengmian's most reliable move was restrained by Long Weiyang. It seemed that Chu Fengmian did not have any more moves that were enough to contend against Long Weiyang. The outcome was already decided. Kid, your strength is indeed good, but it's too ridiculous to be presumptuous in front of me. Let alone some fortuitous encounter with the Dragon Clan. Even if you are a true dragon, you will still have to submit in front of me. Because my bloodline is the bloodline of the king of 10,000 dragons. Long Weiyang sneered as he looked at Chu Fengmian with confidence, as if he already had Chu Fengmian under his control. Die. Your fortuitous encounter will eventually belong to me. As Long Weiyang spoke, his dragon claw had already struck down. The martial arts contained in the claw was incomparably mysterious, comparable to an Earth-class martial technique, and even not far from a Heaven-class martial technique. The dragon claw fell from the sky, as if anyone would be crushed in front of it. The dragon claw fell with a loud spiritual energy, intending to crush Chu Fengmian, not leaving any chance for him to live, completely destroying him. Submit. Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a mocking smile. Long Weiyang possessed the Dragon King's bloodline, which was extremely effective against the ordinary Dragon Clan. However, this restraint was a joke in front of Chu Fengmian. His bloodline was the ancient battle dragon bloodline. Even if Chu Fengmian only possessed 1/10 of the bloodline, it was still incomparable to the Dragon King's bloodline. Fight! Chu Fengmian indifferently spat out a single word. This single word thoroughly stimulated the battle dragon bloodline in his body. Strands of dragon power fused into Chu Fengmian's battle dragon claw. The patterns on the claw were all revealed, and each of the dragon scales contained ancient dragon language. Now, all of them were connected, forming an incomparably huge array. Containing the power of the array, the huge battle dragon claw also fell from the sky, pouring down endless dragon power. Rumble! When the battle dragon claw fell, it resounded with heaven-shaking thunder. The power contained within had reached the extreme. Boom! The 2 dragon claws collided in the air, turning into a shockwave that swept through everything. Countless seed disciples in the surroundings retreated one after another, fearing that they would be affected by the shockwave. This shockwave was enough to tear them to shreds. This kind of strength was already beyond the realm of divine power realm. Even a high-level life and death realm expert would be shaken to death if they were to rush in. What a powerful strength! This is the true genius of our northern Mang sacred region. Long Weiyang is a core disciple, so it's not strange for her to be able to do all this. However, this Chu Fengmian is a newcomer, and has just been promoted to seed disciple. How could he possess such a terrifying strength? Some seed disciples looked at the collision in the air, and muttered to themselves. Countless gazes were expectantly looking at the sky, waiting to see who would emerge victorious in the next moment. Pung! Right at the moment when the two powers clashed, a figure was sent flying from the sky. What made countless people unable to believe was that the person who was sent flying was actually Long Weiyang. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.